Thank you. I'm going to stay down here so I can be with you guys. And I apologize. I'm going to stand over here. So, for you over there, the important thing is that, not me. Because I'm going to show lots of visuals. But I'm going to kind of stand right here. I can see most of you. And if you want to move some chairs around, feel free to do that. So you ready for some fun? So just to give you some background, Darlene McDonald back there found us 8 years ago. And I think I came and spoke at I think it was a rural tourism development conference or something way back. Yeah, Rural Development Day. And then since then, we have been in Nova Scotia every single year. And I tend to come here with my wife. This is my third of 4 trips to Nova Scotia this year. And just so you know, I actually live in Seattle, Washington. So it's quite a trek. But what's even more of a trek is that as soon as I'm done here, I have to drive all the way to Sydney. So to all those visitors that get off these cruise ships and they come into Halifax and say, well, hey, I'm here to see Nova Scotia today, and I think I'm going to go all the way down to Yarmouth, and that'll take half an hour. And then I'm going to go drive the Cabot Trail. That'll take 2 hours. And I'm going, I don't know that you know Nova Scotia. This is not PEI. And so it's great to be here. We have worked in all your provinces except Manitoba. We don't know what's up with them. although I've spoken there several times. And so it's great to be here in what I have always said is my favorite province by far. And I don't say that in every province. But I actually grew up in the San Juan Islands just off the coast of Victoria. I started my career developing Whistler Resort in British Columbia. And was very much a part of the Olympic team when they won the Winter Olympics. And very much champion for them. And I was probably the only American in the universe that was really rooting for the Canadians to win that hockey, if you remember the 2010 Winter Olympics. So, today we're going to talk about you. And it's been really fun. I was here this summer with my wife, and the reason my wife loves coming to Nova Scotia. I travel 250 days a year. And it's interesting that when I go to places like Muskogee, Oklahoma, or, Prince George, British Columbia and stuff, she goes, I think I'll just stay home. But because she has lots of work to do, and she does work with this. And every time I say I'm going to Nova Scotia, she goes, I'm coming. And I have other staff that say, well, can I go with Roger this time? And she goes, no, it's my job. And this is the only time I've been in Nova Scotia where she didn't accompany me. And by the way, I will be back at the end of November, about a month from right now, to speak at the Tie-Ins Conference, the Travel Industry Association Conference in Halifax, and I hope you'll attend that. Because I'm going to talk about tourism in the 21st century, and I'm also going to talk about the 7 deadly sins of marketing. And if any of you are businesses or tourism operators, it will be amazing for you. So I hope you'll attend that. So what we've been doing here is we did a thing called an assessment where we came and secret shopped you. And we spent 3 weeks here on the Southwest Shore. So we did kind of the Blue Nose section, from Peggy's Cove down to basically La Have, Petite Riviere, Bridgewater. And then we did the next session, and we talked to them last night. We're at White Point Resort, and now we're talking about you. So we've done this whole thing. In the past, we've already done Digby Neck, and, the Annapolis Royal area, and all of the Annapolis Valley. And we looked at all your marketing, and then we did an on-site assessment, which means we came here and secret shopped you. And by the way, when we did all of this, we didn't have anybody tell us you need to go see this or this. We did it through the eyes of a visitor. So nobody from Southwest Nova told us, oh, you need to go here. Nobody from tourism told us. We just came just like any other visitor would. And what you're going to see is what we saw. Today I'm not really going to cover much on marketing because I'll really cover about the product and what we saw. And we went through a list of 60 items when we came and did our assessment. And don't panic, I'm not going to go through all 60 of those with you. But we will be doing an assessment findings and suggestions report, which you will get in the next couple of weeks. And so that'll have a lot of this. And this, by the way, is being filmed because I'm sure you're going to say, oh my gosh, I wish so-and-so was here to hear this. And so that will be available for you. And so here is our experience. And we'll start with Woods Harbor, because the last one we kind of ended at Shag Harbor down there. And by the way, visitors could care less about county lines. So when I see a Queens County or Shelburne County, when I see those visitor guides, you know what? They end up on the back seat. You know, and I had the same conversation over in the Blue Nose Coast section about, oh, well, the Lunenburg municipality has to do their own brochure. You know what? We're going to use the one that really encompasses the whole area. Have you ever gone anywhere and said, there's the county line, turn around quick? We don't. So we have to get out of this mentality of promoting geography. As a matter of fact, it already drives me nuts in Nova Scotia that everything is South Shore, Southwest Shore, Eastern Shore. I mean, come on, let's start selling experiences instead of locations. And so that's going to be really important. So we did start there, we went there, and the first thing we saw is, looks like every single attraction is to the left, and we're supposed to start working to the right. I mean, I have to tell you, from the eyes of a visitor, if you were coming here, if I was as a visitor and I thought that, we're here as a visitor, you know what, I would have turned left. Because the only thing I can get both directions is gas. The kind that you put in your car. And so that was our first challenge. I went, okay, there's got to be some attractions the other way. So when we did see this museum. Our assumption is it is out of business. And am I right or am I wrong? But there were many museums we've run across throughout the province where we had no idea whether they were coming, going, gone, just closed for the season or whatever. If it is an operating museum, you probably need to say, here's when we're open a little more, because we're not going to get out of our car, walk up to the door and see what it says, but it looks like it's empty. So this is our first introduction to the area. We didn't see a whole lot of spending opportunities. And by the way, let me talk about tourism just for a second. I don't want anybody to ever tell you that tourism is not economic development and that's a bunch of low-paying jobs. That is absolutely false. Here's what you have to understand. Tourism is the front door to your non-tourism economic development. So if you want industry, anybody that would set up an industry in Yarmouth or anywhere on the shore here, the Acadian Shore, this whole area, they're going to come here first as what? A visitor. Is this a place I'd want to invest in? Is this a place I'd want to live? My employees want to live. Tourism is the front door to your non-tourism economic development. It is the purest form of economic development. People come, they spend money, and they go home. You don't need, if you bring the right kind of visitors, you don't need to police them. You don't need the social services. They don't use up any more roads. And tourism is the fastest growing industry in all of your provinces. And finally, tourism is the #1 small business generator in North America. And so that's really important to know. And so that's why this is really a great way to put you on the map. And we're going to talk a lot about this. But what we did is, so we're driving around and we find the Pubnico area. Am I pronouncing that right? Okay, want to make sure. And we did see this. Now, I understand the Acadian culture. Remember, we've worked all over the province. But, a lot of us visitors are really English speaking. So it would be good on your signs if you actually did both, because I have no idea what this is. It looks like there's some kind of music. But I don't know what it is. I don't see the word Kaylee up there. I'm not too sure. I see Research Center, and so so that's great. And by the way, it's very, very difficult for you. And by the way, I'm not just picking on them, but anybody that has business here, don't use script text on any signs. Script text you cannot read. So it's just something you should know. It is a beautiful spot. Look, she's out there gardening. I mean, it was just beautiful. We just thought, wow, that's so pretty. Went up and congratulated her on making it look so great. But a nice little place. And so we thought, okay, there's a good first impression. And then we saw Le Village here, right here. And my first thing is they have soups made of poison. No, I'm just kidding you. I'm just kidding you. But they're, I can figure out that this is Return of the Jedi, and but you know, I would imagine that there are probably more visitors to the area that speak English than French. And so, you know, so my guess is that they must have some kind of food there. And so, but once again, I would do English, and I understand it's an Acadian community and that probably French is their main language. You know, and you know, I'll tell you a funny story. I was working over in New Brunswick, I can't remember the name of the town, but everybody spoke French, and so you know, so they made sure they had an interpreter there for me, even though they all knew English. So there's an interpreter there. But I have to tell you, I do a lot of work in Sweden where I don't need an interpreter. So we did see that. We said, well, let's go check it out. And, you know, see that little orange square right there? You know what I would do? This is all they have to do. I mean, I'm going to give you lots of suggestions. And by the way, there's no recommendations in this. These are just suggestions and ideas because I never talked to you first. We just came here as visitors. But watch that. That's all you would have to do. I just put open on there. So we did see it, looked like a big building, or looked like a great building, and so this is one we had to check out. So we did go inside, and we loved that. When we got there, it was really foggy, and so this let us see what we would see once the fog lifted. But I thought the panels were very well done. We had a great time there. It was an incredible setting. I mean, we walked all the way through it. We loved, you know what? We have been in probably 150 different museums in Nova Scotia, and some of them are absolutely fabulous. This was our #1 historical attraction in the province. And you know why? Because this is the people, this is where their families lived. They weren't just park interpreters or people there. This is where they grew up or where their grandparents grew up. It was so fun to say, well, this is the house my grandma used to live in. And almost everybody there lives within like 5 kilometers of the place. That really brought it home. They were entertaining. They were fun. I mean, it was just a really, really great experience. He cracked us up. I mean, he was, you know, and he is a fisherman. He says, of course, I use modern technology, but he was showing us how they mended nets. I mean, and he was just hilarious. And, I mean, it was just a great experience. We did not want to leave. How cool is that? And so, you know, they had blacksmith, the salt fish. That was interesting seeing the salt fish actually drying there. You know, all of these things that were there. It was really cool. And, oh, yeah, you know, they were making strawberry jam in there. And so a couple suggestions is we did see the stage there, but we had no idea if or when anything happens on the stage. So what you could do is create some kind of a little reader board. Like right here that just says every Saturday from 10 to 2, or I mean, I'm making up stuff now, or this weekend, or we'll do music, or if you put any kind of reader board that says anything about there, you know what it does? It creates an invitation for us to come back. So there's kind of a little missed opportunity there. The restaurant was great. The food was good. I mean, it was had a great little gift shop. I really have no critiques. I mean, you know, just the setting there was like, man, why did anybody move out of there? And I understand the older homes and everything, and so we, you know, it got our 5-star rating. And as a matter of fact, like I started talking about, we have worked everywhere in the entire province. We've driven around every single coastal route in the entire province. When I was here in July, I thought that when I brought our rental car back to Avis that they were going to say, you know, we'd really appreciate it if you didn't rent from us again, because I put on 4,200 kilometers in 3 weeks. And that was just this trip that we did in July. And so we've done all this, the interior, we've been to Kedgie National Park, we've done Cape Breton twice, we've done the Blue Nose Coast twice, the Eastern Shore, I mean, on and on and on. And so after doing this, the only places in Nova Scotia that we really haven't assessed is Halifax and Dartmouth. Because we even did Cole Harbour, and so what we did is we made our list of the 12 best historical attractions in the province. And this is our picks. It's not the province or anybody. This is my wife and I spending 8 years coming here and going through all of these. This is our picks. You want to see them? Here you go. The Celtic Music Interpretive Center in Judique. What's cool about that, if you haven't been there, is that they actually have videos of how to step dance. And that's where I learned that I should never, ever take up dancing. I couldn't even get one step down. But you know what? It gave me a new appreciation for what goes into that. The Fisheries Museum at the Atlantic in Lunenburg. They do a great job. Fort Anne and Port Royal over in Annapolis Royal area. The Fortress of Louisbourg, and I just happened to be there when they were doing the 300th year celebration. How cool is that? The Grand Prairie National Historic Site, talk about Acadian history right there. The historic Dock Street in Shelburne, which I thought was awesome. And Les Villages right there. And these, by the way, are in alphabetical order. So aren't you say, boy, he put us down the list. That's why. Memory Lane, we thought out there was great. The Museum of Industry in Stellarton is great. And Sherbrooke Village right there. And is that my last one? There we go. Cape Breton Miners Museum in Glace Bay do a great job. And so that's kind of ours. So that one is right here. And so one thing else that's really important is you need to promote your anchor tenants. You know, no mall is ever developed without anchor tenants, whether it's the Bay or, you know, another big box retailer. And you need to promote your anchor tenants. And I always say, you know, think Orlando. How many of you would go to Orlando if Disney World was not there? Raise your hands. One. Do you have relatives? No. Okay, so you'd go there. Nice weather. Okay, what if it was January? Would you go there if Disney World wasn't there? You still wouldn't, huh? Okay, she would. So we got one taker out of this whole room. And you know what? You just insulted 171 other attractions in Orlando. Everybody knows that Disney is the anchor tenant. They are the primary lure that brings people in. And everybody else benefits, because if you've ever gone there, you'll say, while we're here, let's go to Universal Studios, let's go to Wild Kingdom, let's go do SeaWorld, let's go do all these other things. You must promote your anchor tenants. And so I'm going to give you one example. And this is the little town of Alpena, Michigan. And I'm going to talk about them a little bit later. It's a town of 10,000. They're 4 hours away from Detroit. They're not near any metropolitan area. They're about like you to Halifax, you know, even probably further away. And we thought, if people come in that area, we need to promote our best of, selecting Alpena's best restaurants, retail, and attractions. No lodging is in this guide. The reason is we need lodging to hand this out. One of the problems I've run into in Nova Scotia Visitor Information Centers, we will walk in and say, where's a good place to eat? The number one asked question of visitors in the world. And we don't want to list. And we've had many cases where they say, well, I can't mention any one restaurant. You know, because they'll have hell to pay, you know, from the other restaurants. And we've actually seen that. So you know what we do? We walk out and we just grab our cell phone, we look up TripAdvisor, and we go find one on our own. So what I always say is promote your best ofs. And in their case, you know, they have the Maritime Center. They've got, so it's a mix of retail shops, restaurants, and activities, of which about 75% of them are private businesses. The heart and soul of tourism is private industry, not trails and outdoor recreation. That's where economic development is. I mean, if you think about it, if I go into the States and you think about tourism and their best attraction, you know, all of that stuff in Orlando, that's all privately developed. You think about Nashville and country music, that's all private. Napa Valley, all the wineries, that's all private. Think about the best tourism destinations. They're built on private sector, not public sector. Because you know what? Everybody in the Maritimes has outdoor recreation and seashore, seaside drives. And so you need to promote these. There's a winery there. There's the shipwreck tours. I mean, all of these businesses. And here's how this thing went. First of all, these people were invited to be in here. They didn't say who wants to be in here. They were invited. And I'm going to show you the criteria in a minute. They each paid $400 for their panel, so it's a public-private partnership. And then what they did with this is they printed, I can't remember, 30,000, 40,000 copies, and they have about I can't remember how many households in the area, but they mailed one of these to every single household in the whole area, Alpena area in the county. The county has 30,000 residents. Alpena's about 10,000. They mailed one out with a little card. And here's what it said. The number one reason people travel is to visit friends and family. We hope you will hang on to this brochure so that when friends and family visit you, you will show them the best of what Yarmouth and the Acadian Shore has to offer. In their case, Alpena. Because we believe that every dining room table should be a concierge desk. They went and handed these out to all the hotels. So when somebody said, where's a good place to eat? And say, well, you know what? There's lots of choices here, but we do have this brochure that has our very best ofs in it. You could start with this. You know, people got this in the mail, and they started coming downtown, and they went, wow, I didn't know you were down. How long have you been down here? And the merchant would grit her teeth and say, 10 years. You know, and you know what happened? They started handing this out. Within 90 days, their hotel room stays tripled because of a brochure. Now, they had 9 hotel rooms, so, you know. No, I'm kidding. They actually have about 420 hotel rooms. They tripled their stays because people got this best of and said, wow, while we're here, we got to go check that out. While we're here, we got to go check that out. You need to do that. You always promote your anchor tenants. Now, here's what happens is the politics get in the way. Well, you promoted them and you didn't promote me, and I think I was just as good as them. Now, that would never happen here, would it? I didn't think so. But you know what the other people are now saying? That was the best $400 I never spent because I didn't realize that when they went into the anchor tenant next to me, they also came into my shop. If you ever go to Halifax Center, the big mall, you don't go there because there's a lot of little cell phone dealers and Rogers Wireless and Hallmark stores. You go there for those anchor tenants, and while you're there, you shop in all those stores. It's the same thing with this. You need to promote your anchor tenants. So we want you to create a best of the Acadian Shore or the South Shore, or you could combine with the Liverpool, Shelburne area. I mean, I don't know that we need one of these, you know, too many of these, but we want all over the province, the areas to have their best ofs. What they did in their case, they had to be highly regarded by somebody other than themselves. So we went to TripAdvisor, Yelp, 80% positive reviews. This is how you vet them so that you're not going to get into the political game. They had to have good curb appeal. They had to be open at least May through October, and Alpena is very seasonal like you are. In a place like Yarmouth, you might say, we want them to be open year-round. You can do your own criteria. And they had to be open until at least 6 o'clock p.m. I'm going to give you a statistic right now that 70% of all consumer retail spending now takes place after 6 p.m. Are you open? And I'm not talking about just Tim Hortons and McDonald's. You know what I mean? We're talking about retail and stuff. 70% happens after 6 p.m. Think about this for tourism. If we're out there kayaking, canoeing, biking, hiking, photography, bird watching, doing all of those outdoor recreational things, we're doing those during the day, and we're not spending a lot of money when we're doing them. Even if we pay for a guide, we'll pay for that or whatever, but we're not spending a lot of money. We come back at the end of the day, and we're ready to spend money, and you're closed. Just so you know, the number one activity of visitors in the world is shopping, dining, and entertainment in a pedestrian-friendly setting. That is where 80% of non-lodging tourism spending takes place. 80%. Why do you think Disney put Downtown Disney outside each of its parks? And I teach for Disney Institute. Why do you think they did that? To get that 80%. So think about that. You can bring people here to Yarmouth, but if you don't have any place for them to spend money, it's short-lived. This is the main reason why Nova Scotia does $2 billion a year in tourism, which, by the way, is not pocket change. That's billion with a B. You could be doing 4. That's the potential you have. You got to stretch your seasons, and you got to be open after 6. It had to be open at least 6 days a week. And they had to be unique, in your case, to the Acadian Shore. So that means we're not going to put Tim Hortons and the chains in there, Boston Pizza and those places. It has to be unique to you. That's the power of anchor tenants. So market your best restaurants, market your best retail shops, your best activities, attractions. And I just gave you some round numbers. You can't just say we're going to put every restaurant in there because then you know what people are going to say? Well, they're just promoting everything. You must promote your best doves. Photo opportunities that are really special, that's what you need to do. And you can't let politics kill it. And so, we did this over just yesterday, over in the Liverpool, Shelburne area, the South Shore area, and that's what we came up for them. And you probably recognize a lot of those. Probably my favorite one there is Charlotte Lane in Shelburne. Have you ever eaten at that restaurant? How cute is that? And so, and you notice out of these, let's see, this one here is private, 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 and then nonprofit, and then, of course, see what I mean? So it can be a mix. I don't know why it is where I say, well, this is public. And by the way, I don't want to hear this argument, we can't promote private business with public money. That's what economic development is. Can you imagine Orlando running ads that say, we have a whole slew of attractions here, including this really big theme park, but we can't mention them by name because they're privately owned. We have 240 wineries here in Napa Valley, but we can't mention any of them because they're all privately owned. Come on. You need to promote. You know what? You know why you promote your anchor tenants? Because success breeds success. It's true. So La Village absolutely has to be on that list. So once we were done with that, we did go to Dennis Point. And people told us that Dennis Point was the largest fisheries marina in Atlantic Canada. I think that was right. And so it's a great marina there. And, and of course, once you drive up, it says, due to recent damages, no longer will be tolerated, restricted access and everything. This is our gateway. Welcome us to Dennis Point. And we're told that it's a great attraction to go check out. You know, we see lots of trash around it and the weeds and everything. We're going, property is monitored and everything. Legal action will be taken. I mean, it's like, okay, I'm leaving now. I'm sorry. You know, it's like, you know. And so that's the challenge. So you know what they need to do in a place like this is take that top sign and just do that. Can't you be welcoming? I mean, if you want to put all the warnings, let us at least park because this is the first sign we see. And right in front of our car say, by the way, I'm warning you right now. But, you know, do that. The largest commercial fishing port in Atlantic Canada, right there, it says something. So from that to that. And you can still do restricted access. That's fine. We know there's going to be rules and regulations.
I'm going to take a picture and I'm going to text this to the harbor master right now.
Way to go. Woohoo! Do you want the before one?
Nope.
You got that one.
We know the before.
You know the before one. By the way, you know why you have somebody from the outside doing an assessment like this? First of all, I can say things you might want to say but can't without paying a political price. Number two, I can always run away really fast because I live somewhere else. But that's, you know, and so what you're doing is seeing this is from the eyes of a visitor. You know, consider interpretive panels describing the vessels like, you know, this is a fishing trawler or this is what this one does. This is the reason the decks are flat. This is how we bring in the lobster traps, whatever. Remember, a lot of these people we don't know your fishing industry like you do. To you, this is all old hat. You grew up with it. It's the entire province. But for us, we want to learn about this stuff. And so, you know, even the color floats, well, you know, each color float is like a brand, and so people know which traps are there. You know, but you need to explain. And I grew up in a maritime over in the San Juan Island, so I know a little bit, but I don't even know a fraction of even the stuff you have here. And so it's okay to teach people that stuff. You know, like this, I see boys there, and it's all the nets and everything. We have no idea how this works. I know you have the living wards demonstrations. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And so, you know, there's lots of trash around, and you know, that just looks like it's been there for weeks. Want to take another picture? No, I'm just kidding. And so, you know, just pick it up because it could be a cool thing. And I understand you don't want visitors out there walking the docks and stuff, and that totally makes sense. I mean, these people are earning a living there. But at least you could have, like, interpretive centers around the parking areas that would just say, you know, let me tell you a little bit about how these things work. Not necessarily the history, but about how it works. We like that kind of stuff. You know, the cafe looks really good. We were there too early, so it wasn't, or no, as a matter of fact, we were there, okay, but we ate over at La Village. And so we weren't ready for lunch here, but it looked like a great cafe. You know, I'd cut down the weeds a little bit. It wasn't, but at least they do have some beautification, some shrubbery, and so that was nice. And so, with the Living Wharves thing, here was the challenge with that. We did get the brochure there. We thought it was really cool, but here's the deal. I don't know that you're going to find a single visitor that's going to come into Halifax that's going to say, well, let's plan our whole vacation so that we can get at Dennis Point on Monday at 1:30 to 4:30. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just so impossible. You might get some visitors that say, can we kind of somehow time it right to be there in that little 3-hour window? But like when we're done with La Village, we thought we were probably going to spend an hour there. We spent like 3 hours there. And so the challenge is with the windows of this, they're so narrow and so just once a week that you've got to figure out another way to make it work. You know, and I'm not saying you have to have somebody there all the time, but just through interpretive panels. Or even where you have a little, or even a QR code where we can put on a QR code and it'll pull up and talk about Dennis, and it might show a little video. So that's the kind of technology things that you could do while we're there. And so chances are pretty slim that you can get visitors plan their whole thing around that. And I'm not saying to everybody, but for a lot of people like me where we want to see a lot of stuff. And so typical Dennis Point would be a stop on a much broader itinerary. And so there's kiosk, you know, and we even thought, well, could you have restaurant staff, you know, if it's slow or anything, say, yeah, we'll take you on a tour, and we charge $10 or $15 for it, and we'll give you the tour. I mean, people would pay for this. So, I mean, we're just coming up with some wild ideas here, you know, or on call or whatever, but I even think, you know, just doing a QR code that would pull up a little video, you know, that would tell you about it, you know, or show you, and interpretive panels would be great. While we were there, we did see the windmills there, and we thought we should check it out. You know, they're kind of cool. And, you know, and so we went up to one. And by the way, my wife's name is Jane. Can you see her in that picture? She's right there. I mean, I don't think people have any clue how big these things are until you get right up next to one. You know, and so I thought it was a great educational opportunity to hear them. Whoof, whoof. And I know they're controversial. I was on DigbyNet a few years ago, and I saw all the signs. But still, we thought they were pretty cool, and it's a great way to educate people. Then we did see, we're driving down the road to see Woods Lobster Company? Yeah, Woods Harbor Lobster Company. We did see that, and we pulled in there. Now, we don't know if they are open to the public or not. Our assumption is that they are only wholesale only. Did I get that right, or are they open to the public? They're not. Okay, so they're just wholesale. So that's fine. We just weren't too sure. And then we did see this, Acadian sea plants and everything. I thought, why do they have a big sign out there when there's you're not supposed to be there? They don't want you there. When you pull in there, it says go away. And I mean, it says authorized personnel only. Do you really need a big sign like this on the highway when it's the authorized personnel are probably going to know where it's at? And so one thing, you know what? You have such a beautiful province. I think you have such a plethora of signs everywhere that sometimes it ruins the experience. And I'm not saying this really ruins the experience, but you know what? Is it really necessary? By the way, we broke the law and drove in there anyway. We wondered what it was. We could see kind of the greenhouses. We could see this, and we thought, I don't know what they do there, if they're growing seaweed for extracts or whatever they're doing, but I thought it was actually kind of fascinating. I thought, you know, maybe they do a deal where you can go in there and just look in there, and they have a little interpretive display, or maybe it's a QR code again. But I thought, you know, all these things, people want to learn stuff. And so we just thought it might be an opportunity down the road, and I'm sure they don't want people in there messing around. And then we saw that, is that cool or what? All we saw was those things out there. It was like, whoa, you know, because all the fog was there, and it was, you know, it was pretty cool. And by the way, visitors actually like these. I know people complain about them, oh, it's ruining our visual things, but visitors generally around the world, we did research in Alberta when they were putting up these wind farms, and visitors really saw them as an attraction more than a detraction. So just FYI, I don't want to get in the politics of them, But I just, the way the fog was that morning and everything, I went, that is pretty cool. It's just beautiful. And so one of the other things we noticed in this area, the churches were stunning. I mean, just stunning. We thought, oh my gosh, they're worth a tour all by themselves. And most of them were actually open. The doors are open right there, and we just thought that was stunning. And so we thought, no, this is in New Brunswick. They even have a church's route, and I thought, man, you ought to do a church's route. You know, because you got so many of them, and some of them are just absolutely stunning. But it's kind of cool what they did is create, you know, what you would do is you would pick your passion. If it's birding, that's the one you'd pick up. You might pick up too, you might say, I like churches and lighthouses. And so it's just a way to create these experiences defined by what people like. So it's an idea. But you know what? They don't even have to be the big churches because we thought this was really cool. It's really, really charming. Is it Rocco? Is that how you pronounce it? Rocco Point? Really, really cute. And we just were there, and it was so peaceful and everything. It was really kind of a humbling experience. It was really pretty emotional. I don't know why, because my wife felt it too. It's just such a serene setting, and just really, there's Jane right there. And just really great. And look at that. I mean, I thought it was a great, what I call a hidden gem. You know, it's probably not going to be on your best of, but if you're in the area, you got to go check out things like this. And so that's the other thing I want to talk to you about is creating a hidden gems book. And I would do a hidden gems for the whole, from like, it could be the entire southwest Nova Scotia, or it could just be, you know, from like La Have all the way around, you know, and Yarmouth, this area. And so, but I want to talk about this thing here was done in Door County, Wisconsin, which is a peninsula that runs up into Lake Michigan, kind of the mirror of the Bruce County in Ontario. You know, Ontario's here and it's over here. And a private person did this little book right here. But I would do one that is the hidden gems of the Southwest. And by the way, I've tried Southwest, the Acadian and Yarmouth Shore, whatever you want to call it. And it doesn't have to be 101. And, you know, but this is the kind of specifics it have. This says, our favorite Sunday morning starts with breakfast at White Gull Inn on Main Street in Fish Creek. A specific restaurant in a specific little town. Splurge on a slice of their famous Door County Berry sour cream coffee cake. Sold. A specific dessert in a specific restaurant in a specific little town. See what I mean by details? From the White Gull Inn, follow Main Street to Cottage Row and turn right. The walk will take you north along a row of shoreline cottages about a mile before it turns up the steep bluff. At the base of the bluff is a sliver of a park known as Champagne Rock, named for the little rock that hangs out over water. Down and back is a perfect way to walk up breakfast to start the day. Can you imagine? We couldn't find these. You know these. These have to come from locals. A private person developed this little book. Cost him $4.50 to print. He sells it for like $8 to bookstores, visitor information centers. They sell it for $13. He prints them 5,000 at a time, and so far he's printed 30,000 of them. He can't keep them in print. And you know what the thing is when people go to Door County, they'll buy one of these books. They only get to do like 6 or 7. This book, they did a survey once of this book, and where 70% of the people that bought the book made multiple trips to do more of the items. But you know, we were here for 5 days, and we didn't find all your hidden gems because they're hidden, most of them. We did find Rockwell Point, but we think that you should promote your very best ofs, the grand things, and then promote the cool little things that you would do while you're here. You probably wouldn't make a special trip to go do that. But while you're here, wouldn't that be a cool thing to do if that was here? So here's a business opportunity for somebody. And by the way, another town did one, and nowadays they did the same thing, and it's in full color. And they still get it printed for $4.50 a book. It's a cool thing to do. So there you go. Promote your hidden gems. And they might be like these. That wouldn't be a big thing we would drive all the way from Halifax to do, but while we're here, we would absolutely do it. We saw that. We saw the Firefighters Museum there. We didn't get a chance to go in. And then we did see, you know, there were signs for a lighthouse out here. Do you know where this is? I can't quite remember. But somewhere out here, there's a lighthouse, and you can see how the fog is. And we finally found it out there, but there wasn't really any signs to it. We ended up going like little dead-end roads and industrial areas. And so one thing I'm going to talk about is wayfinding in a little bit. We saw another church there. I mean, these are just beautiful. We just thought, man, just doing a whole church's tour and make sure you use photography. We thought this studio did a great job. So for you that have signage, for business signage, it tells them when they're open. There's an arrow there. Art, Heritage, Katie, and the gallery studio. I thought it was very well done. We did see the hotel here. It looked very nice. The first thing we did, and I thought, man, they ought to put a couple of chairs out there in the porch. You know what chairs do? They say welcome. So chairs, and I thought, just put a couple of them out there just to make it more welcome. And of course, we checked them out on TripAdvisor. They had really good reviews. And that's great. You had some excellent and very goods. There was no average, no poors, no awfuls. And so that was great. It looked like a place we'd stay. So I think they did a good job. We did stop here. We had lunch, and now, it's mid-afternoon, and we did buy ice cream there. And it was great. And so we did stop by, and we like these little stands like that. We did see this sign right here, and we're not too sure if this radio station 100 meters up here is a tourist attraction, if we're supposed to stop, get out, is it a historical attraction? I'm trying to figure out what the purpose of this sign is. Does anybody know? Oh, it's to tell people to tune in. And can they only tune in when they're 100 meters up the road? See what I mean? I'm going, well, it's 100 meters, and that's when we can tune in. Or does that mean we're supposed to stop and get out of the car? So sometimes you have to say, well, what's the real purpose of this? So what you could do is just put visitor info 104.1, just put visitor information there and get rid of the 100 meters. Does that make sense? What do you want people to do? Tell us. But I went, well, that's interesting. We did see this nice little shop. We have no idea what it is. Does anybody know? It's a gallery. You know what? You need to make it obvious, like put a sign out there that says gallery. And I think there was a little sign somewhere. It says open there, but we were trying to figure out what it was. We just weren't sure if it was somebody's home that was open part-time or whatever. And by the way, with visitors, you have to make it really obvious. And you have to make it really convenient. Because what visitors do, if they can't figure it out in a fraction of a second, we're going down the highway, you have about 4 or 5 seconds to get our attention. If you don't, one word comes into our mind, next, and we're already past it. So it has to be obvious. And another church, these are just so stunning. We were just kind of blown away just by the churches. And so we thought it was really important that you just make them a best of collectively, the churches along there. And then we did see this great little spot right here. Talk about stunning. We just went, wow, that is so picturesque. And we had to just stop there. And, of course, we had to put that on the list, too, Gilbert's Cove. Just a beautiful little spot. Absolutely worth coming out of the way for. And, by the way, you want to see another list? You want to know the 10 best, what we think are the 10 best lighthouses in Nova Scotia that are accessible. Here they are. You ready? Annapolis Royal, the lighthouse there. Cape D'Or, one of my very favorite. Talk about a setting. If you haven't been to Cape D'Or, you need to go. Cape Fortune, which we're going to talk about. Cape George, Chebucto, Fort Point, Liverpool, which is probably the prettiest lighthouse in Nova Scotia. They've got rose gardens all the way around it. They've done an amazing job. Gilbert's Cove, absolutely. These are in alphabetical order once again. Louisbourg, that's a great one, and Peggy's Cove, and Port Bickerton. So there's our list. I think that's 10, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yesterday I only showed 9. Somebody made sure they were keeping track. And so those, I think, are not to be missed. You have hundreds of lighthouses. And yesterday I said, I think I've seen them all. And Darlene said, no, you haven't. Because I know a lot of them are kind of hidden and, you can't really get to. But those are the 10 that we thought were absolutely worth the drive. So we did see the sign to Weymouth. And do you pronounce it Weymouth? Okay, that's what I thought. But I thought it was a nice setting. It was a beautiful sign. Where the river meets the sea is not exactly unique to Weymouth. We've been in many other ones. But you know, it's a little bit generic on the slogan there, but I thought it was very nice. It's a beautiful logo, and it was just in a nice setting. So compliments there for that. Once we got there, once again, we do see that one thing you need to do is fix these. Because this one here, we see there must be something there. We have no idea what it is or where it is. This one here, we see an attraction, but we don't know which direction it is. And here we got one that's just totally missing. So sometimes you have to go out and maintain these things after pieces get missing. So it's just something that, as visitors, you probably don't even notice this stuff because you live here and you know where everything is. But we notice all that stuff. So that's something you can put on your to-do list. This, all by itself, we had to add to the list. And, you know, I mean, wow, what a stunning church. That looked like something we saw in Scotland when we were working there. I mean, it's amazing. Even though you have the churches of the Acadian Shore, I thought you had to at least single that one out. I mean, that is just an amazing piece of architecture. Probably more than, I mean, it's right up there with the top of any architecture anywhere in the province. It's amazing. And so we did drive around. We saw a little, you know, art and minerals and everything. But one thing is, work with all your merchants. This was in July. The weeds were growing really fast. It had been a little bit wet. And, you know, pretty soon these weeds get a little bit high and you can't really see what it says down there underneath them. And so it's so important to just maintain this stuff like every few days during that time of year. Saw this little lighthouse there, and I mean, we kept driving. We saw the, you know, here's a cemetery here, and we didn't actually go into it, but it looked like it was great. And by the way, one of the challenges we have is we had no idea what this was. You know what? Use the lighthouse icon. I know, and you know, people are saying, well, it's not really a lighthouse, it's a light station. Give me a break. For us as a visitor, we're dumb, you know. We see lighthouses or lighthouses. It doesn't matter what shape they're in. But when we first saw this, it looked like a barn and some kind of, you know, viewing tower or a silo or, you know, we do a lot of work in, you know, Western Canada, you know, where silos are everywhere. And so we had no clue what this was. If it would have had a lighthouse there, you'd probably get more visitors out there. So don't be so literal. We see this as the lighthouse icon, and if that's a lighthouse, put a lighthouse on it. And it is absolutely stunning. I mean, oh my gosh, what a sight that is, you know, and we had a great time there. My gosh, I didn't want to leave. And it was just, I mean, really beautiful. And of course, you know, we took like 1 million pictures there. And it's, I mean, even the interpretive displays there, had the great little restaurant there. And of course, we weren't ready for dinner yet, so we didn't eat there. But, you know, I climbed down on the rocks like other foolish people and, you know. And there's people everywhere. I mean, it was just very popular and very, very nice. And of course, we had to add it to the list. And you saw it was already on our best lighthouses list for all of Nova Scotia. And so we did see this one. Now, I'm guessing that this is open to the public. It is? Okay. So we see cooked live Stanley lobster. Where do you go?
It's for eating there, not the plant itself. It's not open to the public. You have a little shanty.
Where's the shanty?
In the back.
Oh. So, you know, we were working on the Eastern Shore, and there's a place called Crouch's Smoked Salmon or Smoked Fish. And we were visitors. And I'm going to tell you the story because it could apply to them. We walked in, and they had a little counter right there, and in the counter was a little cooler, and they had all the smoked salmon, Danish and spice and Cajun and all these different kinds of. And I said, well, do you have like little samples? No. Well, do you have like crackers and, you know, cream cheese or crackers and cheese? And if we bought something, said, no, we're wholesale, but you can buy this, it's retail. And I said, well, we're visitors, and so they didn't have any napkins. So if we're going to buy some of it, they had a picnic table outside, but if we buy it, we have no napkins, we have no crackers, we have nothing to drink, you can buy it right there, and you can't taste, you don't have any samples. And so I told them, I said, you guys, you're missing a lot of opportunity. And I guess within a week of us being there, they did it. And now you can go in there, and they have crackers and cheese. You can do samples of the smoked salmons, the different kinds, the Danish styles. And I'm going to call them and find out. So did it increase your sales? So here's our case. We're visitors. And so if we could go in there and buy a cooked lobster, is it cracked so that we can actually take the lobster and actually eat it out there? And is there napkins and stuff like that? Can you get something to drink? We had no clue. There's nothing anywhere that says anything. As a matter of fact, that guy right there was like there going like this at me. And the whole time I was taking the picture, he was going like that. And he wasn't mean or anything. He was just trying to figure out, what are you doing? And we were kind of like, should we go in? Where's the door? Do you go in there? I mean, there should be a sign somewhere that says, welcome guests, entrance right here. And say, yeah, and you could put, yes, eat it here. We have picnic out on the other side. You know what I mean? Just tell us more. But all we see is live and cooked. So we thought we assumed we could go in and buy a cooked lobster. But we didn't assume that would be any way we could eat it. So this is what I'm just talking about. And you know what? For probably $100, you could fix that. Just with some signage. Because once again, visitors go, well, most visitors are not going to get out of their cars, go up and go in the door and then ask, and then on the chance that you might, and then they go back to their car. Does that make sense? But I thought they had a great sign out on the highway. It was enough to pull us right in there. But once we pulled in there, it wasn't really obvious that it was open for visitors. We didn't see any place that you could eat. We had no idea, and we thought, well, rather than take the chance, we'll just skip it. So this was an incredible gallery. And so we absolutely, loved it. Had all different kinds of artisans in there. And so we added it to our list of best ofs right there. And so at the Sign of the Whale Gallery. And so we added that. We did see this in Yarmouth, and we're going, wow, this looks like a great place to stay. Am I old enough? I mean, we had no idea what it is. Is it a retirement home? What is it? What is it? It is a retirement home? Okay. We weren't sure whether it was a B&B, whether it was an apartment, whether it was... And then we thought, well, Sunset Terrace sounds like a retirement home. And so we said, that's what we guessed. But I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't lodging and that we thought it was a retirement home. And we saw Frost Park, which we thought was beautiful. Now, I don't consider community parks, an actually best of, because we wouldn't drive Halifax just to go to Frost Park. But I thought it was a nice place to hang out or to spend time there in Frost Park. I thought it was beautiful with the fountains and the gazebo there. And, I mean, it was just really pretty. Just so you know, when we were here, we stayed at the old Argyle Lodge. And I told them to change the name. I mean, it's been that before there. Do we have the people from old Argyle? Oh, hey, there he is. Hey, I should have recognized you. Thank you so much. We talked about that. He said, it's ye old Argyle. I couldn't ever remember how to spell it or anything. And so we stayed there. And we had a great time, great food, great people, great setting. And it was just really awesome. It was really, they do a really great job. And so one thing that was really cool is, we were here for Canada Day, but we were also here for the 4th of July. And so it was nice that for us Americans, they actually did fireworks there for us. It's hard to take pictures of fireworks. They were better than just that. And so that was really fun. They do a great job there. And here's why we stayed there. Look at their reviews. Yeah. Like I said, I travel 250 days a year. I have an assistant, Becky. She's been my assistant for 14 years. Everywhere I stay, that's where she goes. I used to sit on the board of TripAdvisor before they got bought out by Expedia. Now they've been spun off. TripAdvisor is the fastest growing travel portal in the world. They've purchased up Hotels.com, and it's more than just restaurants and hotels. They now do attractions, and so there's also, if you're not in there, you need to get in there. So if you're to have a business on TripAdvisor, that's where we go religiously to look. And that's why we stayed there, was from that. I love it. The very top one there says, awesome job and thanks. But you know what people do? They don't read those. If there's ever any down here in the terrible range, that's the ones we always read. And so it's really important you always watch your peer reviews. You know, and so by the way, famous burgers. Yeah. I mean, you know, it was interesting that when we first got there was the whole parking lot was absolutely crammed full of people. I go, my gosh, they must have like 100 rooms here. And we didn't realize the restaurant was just really good. But that's your specialty, right? It's those burgers. You know, and they have other good food. But see what I mean by promoting a specific dish that really stands out. And so, great job. So we're driving around more, and we do see this, and this is great. This is how all these signs should look, by the way. You should always have, by the way, we always say that what it should be here is a key, or, you know, like this. I always say the key should be here, the name of the place, then the arrow, and then the distance. But at least you got all the elements there. And you need to watch that in other signs around the areas. So key should be at the top, and so they should be, because we notice that they're all kind of mixed up everywhere you go all over the province. But just create it so we have some synergy with these all over. But at least this one had them all on there. And of course, like this one here, we have no idea what it is. It's got the key in the distance, but no arrow. We assume it's straight down the road. And there's no arrow and there's no name of it. So you know what? We see, well, there's something down here 4.6 kilometers. You know what? We're not going to sit there and watch for it because we don't know what it is. We don't know what we're looking for. And then, by the way, that's great. So they do a good job. Another great little gem. We did get out, looked at the bridge there. You know, it's a few 5-minute thing, but it's one of those little hidden gem items, I think. We did see this, and we assume that this museum is also out of business. Am I right? Okay. And that's, I mean, it's really unfortunate with funding the way it is these days. And we just thought if it was open, make sure you let us know. We did see this right here. We saw this. And, you know, you need to go out there and straighten up the sign a little bit. But at least it told you what it was, where it's at, Salt Haystacks. We can see there's golf down there. And so we did go by there. There's a little turnoff right there, which I didn't take a picture of. And we did go in there. But, you know, we thought, that's kind of cool. You know, and so it's, you know, we like being educated. So I thought it was kind of a neat little thing. We did see this here, and it is what was it, a school or a church? I can't remember. A courthouse? Courthouse. And so we didn't get a chance to go in. And just so you know, after a while, visitors start to get really museumed out. And we're immune to that too. So a lot of them we said, well, you know. So the ones we went in had something so outstanding that we had to go in. Like the one church, you know, we had to go in. And so, you know, but once again, you know, it looked like a great little hidden gem. Now, stuff like this, 4 sites. By the way, we only found 3. And, you know, it doesn't tell us, I mean, that's not a reason, you know, and so my suggestion is I just remove it. It doesn't say anything. You know, I don't know what the 4 sites are, and we couldn't find them all. We tried. When you see this, so we see museum, luncheon special Monday to Thursday, 11:30 to 1:30 at the museum. Where the hell's the museum? Excuse me. Where's the heck's the museum? I'm in a church. I need to clean up my language. But where's the museum? There's no arrow. There's nothing. By the way, can you read that logo? I have no idea what this museum's even about. So once again, all you need to do is go down here and put something somewhere here that says with an arrow 2 kilometers, 5 kilometers, wherever it's at. And the sign should always say what the museum is, because I have no idea. And so we do see this. I have no idea what Butte de la Croix is. I have no idea. And it's 2 kilometers down there. What is it? Anybody know? If you don't know, how are we supposed to know? So we have no idea. We couldn't find anything. Is it still there? Okay, because we never found anything. We couldn't. Okay. Okay. Now, is there interpretive signs or something there? Okay, we must have just missed it. So, but that would be, you could just put historical site. Once again, you know what, I think most French people can speak English, but a lot of English people can't speak French. And I know it's very Acadian in this area. Now, one thing I do with museums is there's no way we can read this on here. The only way, I'm out of the car standing right in front of the sign and I still can't see it. And so I have no idea. I know it's the Wedgeport Museum. And so what I would do is, now watch the sign. There you go. I mean, that's really what it is when we went inside, which we did go do. But I would just put, something like that on there because, another museum would say, oh my gosh, not another one. It's like every kilometer is another museum. But I thought that right there tells exactly what it is and makes it really easy. And those that are interested will go in. And so we loved the little marina there at Wedgeport, thought it was great. This is a great sign. And it could even be the tuna fishing sport Hall of Fame, whatever you want to call it. We did go in. And it was, some of it was pretty interesting, but a lot of it is the local people caught the big fish and, and it was talked about that. And of course, we don't know anybody. So to us, seeing all the pictures and everything, I think it's really more of a local draw than it would be for us as visitors. However, there were some other displays like this, but there's no interpretive signs or anything. There's nothing to say how we catch the tuna, how long you have to yank on the line to pull one in, and we do know what the biggest ones were and when they were caught and who caught them, but that was about it. So there is an opportunity there for that. If we don't know anybody and want to know who caught the biggest one and when, then maybe you could say, well, here's how they, these are the boats they use, and, have more interpretive displays. So we're driving around, and so we're in Yarmouth now. We do see this gazebo right here. We thought there's another great place for visitor information right on the water. I wanted to show you this because this is in a little town in Nevada called Beatty. And they had Kiwanis went out. The Kiwanis bought a kit gazebo, and then Rotary got together with Kiwanis, and they built a gazebo. Then they hired a craftsperson for $3,500, and they built this inside the gazebo, and it's got maps of the area, things to see and do, and then it's wrapped all the way around with brochures. Local restaurants, museums, places to stay, places to eat. We just thought that would be kind of a cool thing. You got that waterfront gazebo out there, and you may use it as a band shell, I'm not too sure. But there's what they did. There's what they did on that one. They put it next to their visitor information center, and some of these places, they'll even charge like $5 a month, put your brochure in there, it keeps it stocked, and it lets visitors get those. Because once we come into an area, 81% of people make decisions from brochures. Before we come, we're making decisions off the web. But once we're there, we'll grab a brochure and say, oh, let's go eat there, or let's go check this out. And so having that is really important. And you can put it in several spending locations, and, And if you're going to do multiples, make sure they all look similar. And so I thought that was pretty cool what they did there. And by the way, the other thing you need to know about visitor information, your visitor information center should be working 24/7, 365 days a year. So like this, and this is all, and I'm not saying they have to be staffed during those hours. You just need to have brochure holders like they have right here on the door, like they have right there, or like this one in North Platte, Nebraska, which I thought was really cool. They had a local craftsperson. There it is there. There it is, and then there it is up close. They spent $300, and they had them build these so it has 2 full-size magazines and a rack brochure. So you get a craftsperson and say, we want you to make 3 or 4 of these and put one outside the art center, put one here, put them around town. Then when we're walking in Yarmouth and whatever, we'll pull out a brochure and we'll look at it while we're eating at a restaurant, and you know what? Your spending will go up. There you go. Prior to traveling, 32% of decisions come from brochures. But once we travel, 81%. And so that's why they're still important. I'm going to show you my very favorite kiosk, because I love visitor information kiosks. This is in a little town of Cape May, New Jersey. That's a little Washington Street Mall, and I love that. Isn't that cute? See what it says on there? Welcome, friends, old and new. Linger here a day or two. Talk about welcoming. I have sent them an email asking them, how much did that cost? Because I'd like somebody to start making these. And it's cool. It does have power in there. And by the way, in the winter, they actually have a curtain that hangs here. It's like plastic, pretty thick, so that keeps the wind out of there. And then you can still go in there, so it's working year-round. And they have probably rougher weather in Cape May, New Jersey than you have. But it's really cool with the maps there, and it's lit up. There it is a little closer. It's got all the brochures in there. They do the brochures for free. Although they thought, he says, if we run out of brochures, we may have to start charging, so we can keep them organized and stocked and everything. And but I just thought that was really, really charming. And so I'd like to see, you might have a craftsperson say, well, we want to design something here, and it could be a business opportunity where you start selling these all over the province. But it'd be cool if you had some kind of a kiosk design that you could use all over Nova Scotia. The point being, Visitor Information Center needs to always be working. Travelers don't just visit and go into visitor information centers from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, or 7 days a week. I'm not too sure when yours is open, and it is open a lot of hours. But anyway, just thought that was really cute. I even thought, man, that is so pretty there. Maybe that would be a great little place for at least a little kiosk. It's a great photography site. And of course, we had to take pictures of it, and from there, is it the hospital? Is that what that is over there? Yeah, it was just really, really nice saying. I thought, what a great opportunity for visitor information. While you're here, grab a brochure and linger a day or two. And so, even this, on the way out to the lighthouse, we thought, wow, what a grand entrance. Nice job on the grand entrances like that. We did eat at Rudder Seafood. So now it's dinner time. And so we did stop in there. We did eat there. It was a great atmosphere. And just really enjoyed it. They're nice people, and so we went there. The next day, we spent a lot of time in downtown Yarmouth. We spent almost a whole day. And we had to check it out. And our first opinion was pretty good overall. It's a little bit stark. Not a lot of beautification anywhere. I mean, and one thing you have to learn is you have to soften the transition between facades and concrete. You know who sets the standard for all of the Atlantic provinces? One town, Mahone Bay. Copy them. By the way, I told them a couple days ago, I'm telling everybody to copy them, so don't rest on your laurels. But this month they do the Scarecrow Festival over there. I mean, that place is packed. They probably do far more square foot sales than even Lunenburg, which is a World Heritage Site. Beautification. And so we did see this, blades. First of all, blade signs. Blade signs are perpendicular signs. When we're coming down a street in a car or walking, we see signs that are perpendicular to us. I have no idea what's in any of those buildings. Why should I keep walking down that street? Blade signs. So, I'm just warming up. I want to talk about this. Those are blade signs. Perpendicular signs. And by the way, you want to know something about these. Chocolate, collectibles, trains, food. Don't put the name of your store unless it's obvious what you're selling. If your store is Grandma's Attic and you sell antiques, put antiques on the sign. And that is a real store somewhere that I saw. And it's a great store. But those are blade signs. Notice how they're consistent in height so it doesn't create sign clutter. That's what you need to do. Blade signs. Make them consistent. This is Nantucket. The best towns in North America all have blade signs. So that's in Nantucket. There it is from a little different angle. And by the way, every sign doesn't have to be the same. They can be all different, but there's some consistency so it doesn't create a lot of clutter. There is Carmel, California. I mean, here is Banff. Notice the blade signs. I mean, this is Valparaiso. It's a little bigger scale, kind of like Yarmouth is a little bigger scale, so the signs there are a little bit bigger. And so, if you're a smaller town like Chester or something, then it makes sense the signs might be slightly smaller. But they're still blade signs. This is Canmore, Alberta. And so there they are. Isn't that great? Did you know that and by the way, this is Lethbridge. Here's what I hear. Well, Roger, we can't use blade signs here because, we have these heavy wind loads. By the way, in Lethbridge, all the signs like you see right here are built to 100 mile an hour, not kilometer an hour, wind loads. So that's no excuse for not using them. And by the way, they were just putting these up, and then what they do is they were just, this is the first one, then they put in the next one, then they put in the next one. See the chains right here? They're actually welded in place. So it's just welded, but it's very decorative, and they're putting them all the way down the street. And if a business changed, all they do is change this little part. There's no excuse for not doing this. It's like $200. By the way, the average retailer that adds blade signs will see their sales increase by up to 15% for a $200 investment. We've worked in many towns where they don't even allow them. What a shame. Now, can you tell me what that is? Oh, you're in one. Change the bylaws. I mean, you know what happens is we regulate yourselves to death. So, this is why I have to leave town really quickly when I'm done.
No, don't go anywhere. I'm with him, by the way.
And so, can you tell me what that is? Any guesses? Pub, jewelry store? They're barely hanging on. They sell T-shirts and souvenirs. See what I mean? Always promote what it is you're selling before the name of the store. There you go. That is so important. I mean, can you read that? Can you read the script writing there? It's the wood merchant, and underneath it says quality handmade gifts and furniture. So you know what I did? I went to this merchant, and I said, I want you to do an experiment with me, would you? And he goes, well, what do you want me to do? I said, I want you to take down this sign and change it. He said, why would I do that? I said, well, what I want you to do is put handmade gifts and furniture on that sign, because it says wood merchant here, over here, and in the doorway. And he says, well, why would I put handmade gifts furniture? That's not the name of my store. I said, because it's the lure to pull people in your store. He says, well, I'll think about it, and so I left, and I went, I called him up about a month later and said, dude, did you ever get the chance to do that sign? He goes, yes. I went, oh my God. And I said, so tell me about your experience. He says, well, you know what? The second I took down that sign, the city was going to go make me and say, go get a new permit and all that stuff. And he said, second of all, I couldn't get the sign with a ladder because this hangs out too far. So I had to go rent one of those boom trucks, I had to move cars out of the way. You can see the shadows of the car. I had to move cars out of the way, move the boom truck. They take the sign down. Then the city was giving me a bad time. Then I didn't have the sign for 3 days. Then I had to go rent the truck again. I mean, it ended up costing me like $500 to do this. And I said, well, gee whiz, I'm sorry it wasn't a very pleasant experience. How long has the sign been up? He says, it's been up about a week. And I said, did it really help? And then he went, I'm just joshing with you. I paid for the sign the first 3 days in increased profits. And I went, whew, because I was just about ready to say, sir, I'll send you a check. In increased profits. 3 days paid for a sign by selling the lure. We were in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. This was the entire sign, Grizzly Rick's Market. This was not on there. So, if you're in any of your downtowns, we see a market. I don't care about a grocery store or market. So we added the lure, snacks, drinks, sundries, and drinks. His sales went up by a third. The lure to pull people in. That's what you need to do. Can you tell me what's in any of these shops? What's that? The liquor store. They get it. How about there? I can see one sign up there, and there's another one way down there. I mean, I can see, but what's in any of these stores? Most of your stores in downtown Yarmouth, I only know what's in them when I'm across the street. And by the way, when you put those big signs across your historic facades, it just depletes the beauty of the historic buildings you have. Blade signs. And if you do blade signs, you don't need as many sandwich boards. And by the way, I don't consider this great beautification. This one here, hands-on crafts, and I mean, this merchant did a pretty good job. They actually have a sandwich board and the blade sign, but at least we knew what they had to offer. And my wife saw that from a block away, went down and said, got to go check it out. This one here, they did good. They're on a corner, so that was pretty easy. But if we're walking down this way, I'd have no idea what's in their building. And that's what you have to understand. We thought this was a great little shop. We went into it. But, and of course, they're not right, where they are down by the waterfront. And I thought it was really cute with the colorful and everything. But, because there's no blade sign, she has to use a sandwich board. And so when you have blade signs, it helps you reduce the need for that. Same here. You know, and by the way, I don't have anything really against sandwich boards as long as they're decorative and as long as they're only in front of the store and as long as they put them away at night. And, but because they did pull us in, but there's no blade signs. That's what they have to do. As a matter of fact, if it wasn't for those, I wouldn't have been able to see them. And then, we did go in that gallery. And by the way, this is an awesome gallery. It is really a great gallery. And so, somebody say thank you. Is that your gallery? Oh, it's a co-op. Yeah, it was really great. That's what we like, galleries that have a mix. So I added them to your list of best ofs. You pay me later. No, I'm just kidding. But, and I thought right here at Sandy's did a good job with this, but I'd like to see it more down, out in front, at least during the summer months and everything. But at least we have some color there, but I think she was like the only merchant anywhere that had any kind of beautification. You know what it does? It makes you look like an industrial town. What's that? Is this? Right here. Way to go. She gets it. Look at that. 70% of first-time sales come from curb appeal. We all travel. Have you ever said these very words? That looks like a nice place to eat. That looks like a nice place to stay. Ooh, that looks like a nice retail shop. 70% of first-time sales come from curb appeal. Now you know why Mahone Bay does it. And by the way, one of the things I just love about Mahone Bay is the color. I went and told Peggy's Cove, I'm begging you not to paint your houses beige. We love, that's one thing that's iconic about Nova Scotia is the bright yellow. I know Acadian's white, but bright yellow, purple, pink, and everything. And this is so colorful, you just want to go there. Notice the blade signs and the beautification. I mean, look at that. And you wonder why Mahone Bay, granted they're close to Halifax, which certainly helps, but look at that. Look at the beautification. Look at the blade signs up there, have a yarn. I mean, look at that. This here, it's beautiful. In the winter, they have all kinds of stuff here, and it's out of the snow removal by doing the raised window baskets. And of course, this is the month they do the Scarecrow Festival, which is awesome. And it runs the whole month. This is in Canmore, Alberta. Here's the other thing about beautification. We encourage merchants, and if this is not allowed, there's another bylaw to change. Merchants should be given, sorry, I speak in feet and inches. The merchants should be given the first 18 inches or a foot and a half outside the front facade of their door to extend window displays to exterior spaces. This does not mean folding tables with stuff on it. That makes you look like a second-class garage sale town. Because you would never put in your display window a folding table with a bunch of stuff piled on it. If you wouldn't put in your display table in your display window, you wouldn't put it outside. That's in Canmore. Doesn't it make you want to go in? That's in Canmore. Every morning, the merchant spends 10 or 15 minutes doing that. She goes, it doubles my business. It's window displays. It makes it obvious that you're open, and it makes it welcoming. And so there's another one. Here's another one. And this is all in downtown Canmore. Even their bike shop, I thought it was cool. They put their bikes out on the outside. Here's a little furniture store, and they actually have place settings out there. They said, how many often do you get people stealing stuff? And they go, we haven't had any thefts. They said, we don't put silverware out there, We put coffee mugs and stuff they can't just put in their pocket. I was working in a town called Fredericksburg, Texas, population 12,000. Out in the middle of the hill country, not close to any major metropolitan area. You know what their merchants did? They all got together. They each pitched in whatever they could afford. Sometimes it was $25, $50, $100, $200. It didn't matter. They just pitched in some money. And then they went to a nursery, and they said, at the end of the year, whatever's left over that you haven't sold, we want to buy all your pots. And they said the only thing is they had to be 18 inches or bigger, so it wouldn't be little ones that are too easy to get kicked around. So they went to this nursery and bought all of them. And then what they did is they brought them all up on a flatbed truck, and merchants went out and grabbed them. So this merchant grabbed all of these. And then another merchant grabbed, these two. And another merchant, there was some left over, grabbed a whole bunch of these. So what they did is they didn't say, well, you spend $100, you get 3. I mean, they didn't do that. They just pulled together as much money as they could, went out and bought them, lined up the whole street with them. Then you know what they did? They went out and got 2 dump truck loads of topsoil, put them on side streets. Then they did a cool thing. They went to a nursery and said, now we need stuff that will be evergreen. So it's evergreen for most of the year. And there was and 3/4 was evergreen and 1/4 was either perennial or annuals. Then they went to their high school. They went to Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, band, football team, hockey, anybody that was trying to raise money, youth groups raising money. And they paid the youth groups to go and plant all of the pots. And you know what? Not one single case of vandalism because kids protect things they take ownership of. That's what you should do in Yarmouth. Because you know what? Sandy Allbyers, is it Sandy? Okay, so I want to make sure the name, She did a good job, but you know what? She can't do it all by herself. You need to just do that all up and down the street. And you're going to say, well, you're in Canada, you don't understand our winters and all that. Yes, I do, because we've done this in Edmonton and other places where they do that. And you just work the snow removal around them. Or you can even take, the pots away in the winter. But you know what? At least during your peak months, and I would say from April through October, not July and August. You're going to get this ferry back. I hope. I think you're close. And you know what? Those people, there's a tremendous spending opportunity, and they're going to go into places that they feel welcome and are beautiful. Look at that. Doesn't that make you want to go in? Blade sign beautification. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pots. By the way, everything you see there, except for this one and this one, you can see some annuals, but most of these are evergreen. That's what you can do. Sandy's taking pictures. So there you go. 70%. Before, after. Retail sales went up 35%. That's a town of 5,000. In Wisconsin. What do you think? See what I mean? And you wonder why people will go out of their way to go to Mahone Bay. And there's another deal. Waiting for the guys. Usually there's some guy in the audience going, that's all? But what you have to understand is that women want to feel safe and they want to feel welcome. I mean, guys do too, but women more than men. And that's what beautification does. It makes people feel safe and it makes them feel welcome. And beautification could be putting those Adirondack, Cape Breton kind of chairs out in front of your stores too. I mean, this is all part of beautification. Extensions of window displays, it makes them feel welcome. But the one thing I wanted to share with you is a picture that was not posed. What do you see? You don't see people relaxing. You see the guys sitting out on the benches. Look it's all men and you know where their wives are. So here's your deal. Women, and that was not staged. I have 2 words for you. I couldn't find a single bench in downtown Yarmouth. You should have benches. I worked in, I think there is a couple. I was working in Cardston, Alberta. And they said, Roger, we have 6 benches out there, and we have a real problem with our Aboriginals, and they drink and they panhandle, and they're in our downtown, and they take up all 6 benches. I said, I want you to put up 30 benches. They go, oh my God, you're going to kill our town. There's going to be a nightmare. I said, I tell you what, you have 6 benches. I want you to put up 6 more. I went back 2 years later, and they had 30 benches because the Aboriginals never took more than the 6. And now all of a sudden, they were the minority. So what I want you to do is you put benches. And benches, by the way, should always be on the facade facing out. So talk about beautification. So imagine you put a bench in front of the facade and a planter on each side of the bench. And if for snow removal or whatever you need to remove them in the winter, fine, but usually you leave them up. And by the way, we don't want vandal-proof benches made out of concrete. They have to be benches people would really sit on. And so that's what you need to do. Think benches. You know, there's beautification. Isn't that a cool bike rack? That's in that little town of Alpena, Michigan. You know, beautiful job there. Great beautification. I mean, you know, beautiful building. We had to go in there. And it was a great place. And, of course, we had to add them to our list of best ofs. And, by the way, this best ofs is not we didn't go in every restaurant. We didn't go in every retail shop. We're just trying to give you a head start. You know, the Art Gallery in Nova Scotia right there. They do a great job. And talk about beautiful architecture. Go, oh, my gosh, this town has so much going for it. And so, but once again, you know, you need to soften this. Everything is hard. It's harsh, you know, what we call hardscape. You need some softscape there. And it'll make you a desirable place to live, work. And by the way, you can see why we like blade signs. These are beautiful buildings. Look what this does to the buildings. You know, so if you can do that, it doesn't mean you have to throw those away, although eventually I like to see you do that more. It just adds to the appeal of having blade signs. You know, Shack Wacky, we thought, you know what? You may say, well, that's pretty. We thought it was one of the coolest shops ever. And we love the color. I mean, you know, somebody may go, man, we think the color's garish. I can hear it now. It's perfect for October. But you know what? We just pulled us in there, and so we had to add them to the list. We had to add them to the list. Sometimes the cool, funky places like that just have to be added. You got to go in and check it out. Very fun. Great job there. Yellow always pulls the eye on brochures, on signs, on chairs. So that's a great job. It says welcome. Notice we got that and that there. That's just very nice. Now, I don't know if it was garbage day or if that's always out there, but you know, it probably was a garbage day, so that's fine. And but once again, you know, it was just cute. Nice job. And then, like here, we see a restaurant. They did a great job, got the outdoor cafes, but there's not a stick of beautification at all. One of the reasons I have my wife with me is because, remember, women make 80% of the purchases. They also make 70% of the decisions of where we're going to travel or where we're going to eat, right? And just yesterday, one of the guys says, no, Roger, 100%. Women rule the world. Get over it, guys. And so, with this, I said, Jane, would you eat there? And she goes, no. And it might be really good food. There might be great people. They might be sitting in this room. You know, who knows? But the point is, without beautification, we don't know. It looks, we like the little outdoor cafe, but I'm not too sure. You know, we did go to the visitor center. It is awesome. What a great visitor center. Wow, right there across from the terminal. And good people in there. They did a great job. We asked lots of questions. I had Jane go in there so people wouldn't know who I was. But I just thought that was well done. It was well maintained. It was pretty. I thought it was a good entrance into the city. Although there's a couple things I would do is, remember, we get off that ferry when it comes, and you need to make sure that your neighbors and stuff are also doing their part. You know, because you know what? This stuff you just don't even notice anymore. I want to let everybody know that she just went like this. Is that your place there?
It's not mine.
Oh, it's not yours.
It's part of where I work.
Okay. I'm just giving you a bad time. It's my job to embarrass as many people as I can. No, but you know what I'm talking about. Granted, this is in July, and so it's just remember that you have to look and think like a visitor, because you're here all the time. You don't even notice this stuff, and so that's what happens. But I thought the gateway, by the way, was awesome that you had that there. I did see the Rod Colony Harbor Inn, and that brings me to another thing, because we thought about staying there until we saw the reviews. And so here's what we do. We see this down there, and we keep going down, and it's right there on the waterfront. It looks nice from the outside. I'm still scanning down the list. There's the Voyager Motel right there. Okay, let's see. What are we doing here? Okay, let's say, oh, there's the Rod Grand Yarmouth. There's 2.5 stars. And so what happens is we will click on it. And I thought, well, it's so centrally located. It's right on the water. And whoo. And so here's what people do is, and by the way, the general manager of this, I can't remember her name right off. Is she? What's that, Louise? Is so nice. It's not her fault. She doesn't own the hotel, I don't think. And what happens is she responded to every single criticism saying, I'm so sorry. We're trying to do our best. I mean, and one thing you need to do when you respond to reviews is never be defensive. And she does such an outstanding job. My heart went out to her. I would never stay there because she doesn't have a good product to promote. But I feel so sorry for her that she's trying to reach out and trying to manage this place and everything. And I mean, Jane was reading those. She goes, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for her. You know, she's trying to apologize for an owner who will not invest into a property. And maybe that's not true. Maybe they're waiting for a ferry. I don't know. But all I know is that, you know what? It's just going to get worse. Because people read these reviews and the worst keep piling up. You saw the terribles. A lot different than your place, huh? You know, and so that's a challenge. Watch your peer reviews. It doesn't cost any money. There's been a statistic, TripAdvisor, 92% trust peer reviews. Across the globe, it's 86%. But the point is, right around 90% trust peer reviews over advertising. There you go. So if you get these, that's in Bedeck at the Alexander Graham Bell site. If you've won some of these from TripAdvisor, they will send you these cards. The other thing you can do is get these this is the size of a business card. This is for a Hilton in Toronto. It's the size of a business card. On one side, it has a picture of the hotel, and that's the other side. You can order these from TripAdvisor, or you could go print your own. But here's what you need to do. You need to take one of these little cards, and when you have a guest, what you do is you come and say, hey, so did you have a great time? Did you enjoy your stay with us? Enjoy your meal with us? Whatever it is. And if they said, yes, it was absolutely fabulous, you hand them one of those cards, say, would you mind doing a review for us? If they say, you know what, I thought your food sucked and the customer service was terrible, you say, well, you know, I'm really so sorry about that, but you know, it's my hand's empty. and that's what you need to do, you know. But on the other hand, just so you know, TripAdvisor has 400 people that just do these reviews. They have 50 people that are signed to fraud prevention. If you try to bait your own reviews or pay people to do reviews, they will ban you for life from their site. So, yeah, so they're very careful about that. And so anyway, it's something that's really important that you do. And so, and once again, go back to your old Argyle. See, I can't even say it right. And once again, it was great. You know, good job. You know, we look at these things, and that's why we pick them. And we're really glad we did. We had a great experience out there, and I'd go back there again in a heartbeat. We thought this was the coolest building ever. We don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, if it's just empty or what it is, but we just thought it was just such a cool building. My first thing came to mind, and my gosh, I'd like to see a big artist co-op in there of art live space, you know, something. I don't know. What is it? Oh, okay, so that's the farmer's market is actually in there. Okay. And how often does the farmer's market run? Saturdays. Saturdays, what else? 9 to 1. And where is that mentioned anywhere? Oh, you have since I was here in July. Good for you.
Because you are allowed to have blade signs in Yarmouth.
So, just so you understand, I want to talk about farmers markets for a minute. Farmers markets are now moving to evening hours, just so you know. 70% of all that consumer spending takes place from after 6 o'clock p.m. And what you have to understand is during the day, and Saturday it's fine, you know, during the day on Saturday. But the future is year-round public markets, where it's a farmer's market during the summer, and then you might have a Christmas tree forest in there. You might have You might have an art market in there. You might have, and it's always changing with different vendors and stuff. And so that's something just to keep in mind about having year-round public markets. And particularly ones that work in the evening hours. I'm just telling you this is where we're gravitating to. Because during the week, we're at work. But after work, wouldn't it be cool if we said, let's go hang out downtown. Let's go down to the market. And by the way, the general mix for public markets is 1/3 locally or regionally grown raw foods. Or produced, milk and those kinds of things. And then 1/3 prepared foods like cheeses or sandwiches or, those kinds of things. And then 1/3 locally crafted goods. Nothing should ever be made out of Nova Scotia that's sold there. And that's the general. So that's just a little 2-minute thing about farmers market. Great building. We did see the Old World Bakery there. Once again, no blade signs. We just happened to see the building. And, and I thought, man, they ought to have, you got this seating area, you put some tables and chairs out there. If you don't allow outdoor cafes, there's another one you need to change and encourage. One thing you need to understand is we are moving to the European standard. Canada and the United States are 2 baby countries, a couple hundred years old. But what's happening is we're just like, if you go to Europe, they eat at 9 and 10 o'clock at night. We are shopping later at night, we are eating later at night, and we want outdoor cafes, we want the pedestrian experience. Go to Argyle Street in Halifax. Outdoor cafes. Once again, we say, well, the city owns those sidewalks and somebody trips over a chair. I'm going, oh my God, quit regulating like this. I mean, I could go on and on about this. Once again, we went in there, we thought it was really great. They had really great cookies, particularly like the little indoor mall, the big, huge goldfish there. And so we actually added them to it. We thought that was cool. I wish that their oven that they had in there actually worked. The old bread oven in there. That would have been really cool if they could make that work. But we did add it to that. I thought it was worth it. We saw this was a cute little space and go, my gosh, that has great potential. I don't really have any criticism or anything of it. I just saw lots of these kinds of buildings that I thought were really cool. You had a really cool mix of Victorian and kind of a fishing wharf, I call this Cape Cod style. And I thought it was cool that you had that mix. Here's another restaurant that actually had some beautification here. But once again, they could just make this. I'd take whatever these designs are and take the whole side of that building and paint it. Because once again, Jade said, I don't know if that I would eat there. It looks kind of nice, but, it probably still wasn't quite enough to close the sale in terms of curb appeal. We did see this, but now all we saw was Fisheries Museum. It's really hard to read logos on signs. So we saw a Fisheries Museum, so we turned around. We tried forever to find the Fisheries Museum. We did see this office building here, and we did see the word museum there, and we go, well, I don't know what museum that is, because it doesn't say Fisheries Museum on it. It says something like the Lawrence Sweeney Museum, so we never found the Fisheries Museum. I know we did. But be consistent in your signs. I would say fisheries, because first of all, I have no clue who W. Lawrence Sweeney is as a visitor. And a fisheries museum would probably be more interest to me as a visitor than W. Lawrence Sweeney is, because I don't have a clue who he is. Does that make sense? And so always promote, if it says Fisheries Museum on the sign, so put Fisheries Museum in there, and then we walk in and say, let us introduce you to W. Lawrence Sweeney. So just be consistent in what you're doing. We loved the historical homes. Oh my gosh, want that one, we want that one. If you own any of these that I'm showing you, just let me know. And that one's a church, of course. But that whole, you know what I'm talking about, this neighborhood? My gosh, you should have a walking tour of that or something. You do? I never saw a brochure or anything about that. But beautiful, beautiful neighborhoods, beautiful homes. We just thought, wow, this is really, really a gorgeous town. Once you go back half a block, off of Main Street, which is also really beautiful as far as architecture goes. You just need to soften it. We did see the golf course. And by the way, we know that Acadians have the star. What does the star mean?
Nothing. It's not an Acadian.
It's not an Acadian thing?
No. It's just a decoration.
But we see it on all kinds. We see it in Shetty Camp. Okay, we just thought... We're starting quite a conversation about this, aren't we?
I have a bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most common questions asked.
Yeah, what's the star mean?
Because they know they're in Acadian country, and they want to know why people everywhere have these
Stars.
on their house.
Well, make up something. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, ma'am. That's what I thought, because the star on the Acadian flag. They're what? They're American? Oh, the house is? Oh, they are. Oh, we see them, and we see them in Acadian areas, like in Pubnico and in Cheticamp, and that's where we see them. So we thought there must be some significance. So, okay. Okay, well, whatever. I thought they were cool. We just thought, well, they're really cool. I wonder what they mean. By the way, wayfinding. Can you read that? Come on. I mean, you have to get out of your car with a pair of binoculars to read it. And so what happens is, you need to do a couple of things. And I want to talk about critical mass for a minute. And I'm going to come back to wayfinding in a minute. Critical mass, if you want downtown Yarmouth to be a destination like Lunenburg, like Mahone Bay, like Argyle Street with its dining, or, the waterfront at Halifax, I mean, I could keep going around the province. You need to have, if you want downtown to be a draw in itself, this is the minimum what you need to have in 3 lineal blocks. Now, it doesn't have to be 3 lineal blocks in a row. It could be a block this way, and this way, but not square blocks, 3 lineal blocks. So not your whole downtown, which is 6, 7, 8, 10 blocks long. In 3 blocks, this is what you need to have if you want downtown to be a draw in itself. A minimum of 10 places that sell food. And they do not have to be sit-down restaurants. You can see there's confectionery, fudge shop, I mean, you name it, little ice cream shop, whatever you think, all of those things. Minimum of 10 in 3 blocks. 10 destination retail shops, which you're getting close to. I don't know that I quite count 10 in 3 blocks. You might have 10 in all of downtown. And these are places that you can see all the things that I have up there on the list. And they're all non-chain, by the way. No chain stores, because we can get that anywhere. They have to be unique to you. And 10 places open after 6. When I was going to college in the first years, I used to work for Sears when Sears was a going concern. Way back. This is way back. And when they built the first malls, they were closed on Sundays. In the 70s, they opened on Sundays from 12 to 5, but they were closed at 6 on Saturdays, and they were closed at 7 the rest of the week. If you go to every successful mall anywhere, Halifax Place, wherever you go, lifestyle retail centers, you will find that they all open at 10 and they close at 9 o'clock at night. But downtowns and merchants don't get it, and you wonder why downtowns are dying. There's more ghost towns across Canada being made today than ever before in Canadian history. Because we're moving the evening hours and the downtowns aren't. And so you know what? These days we have cars with navigation systems, with air conditioning, with video for the kids and everything. You know what? No big deal. We'll just drive all that way to Halifax and go to Halifax Center. That's what's happening. And so if you want your downtown to win, you need to do this. And by the way, this is not just about visitors. This is about locals too. And this is it. They have consistent hours and days. They're open late in the evening hours. They have like businesses grouped together. You will never go to a successful mall and walk into that mall and find a pregnancy clinic and an architect's office and an H&R Block office. They know they have to have like businesses grouped together. That doesn't mean you can't have any of those in your downtown, but you need to make sure you have enough of the critical mass. They all have anchor tenants. Who's your anchor tenant in downtown Yarmouth? And by the way, an anchor tenant does not have to be a big box retailer. It could be the best cinnamon rolls you can find in Nova Scotia, and you're going to find them in downtown Halifax. And that has been written up in magazine after magazine. So it can't just be because you say they're the best. We will go way out of our way for the anchor tenant. So whatever that is, you need to have a couple of those in your downtown. And it becomes a central gathering place. You know, why antique malls? They do 10 times the business when they're together than when they're scattered all over town. Or what about auto malls? Why would Chevy and Ford want to be right next to Toyota and Subaru? Because they do 7 times the business when people are drawn to the critical mass. Think about corner gas stations. Why is you always see, Wendy's, McDonald's, Tim Hortons, well, usually it's Wendy's and Tim Hortons, and McDonald's, Jack in the Box, and Burger King on all 4 corners. People are drawn to critical mass. Remember the days of gas stations being on all 4 corners? Same thing. Food courts, same thing. People are always drawn to the critical mass of like businesses. And there you go. Is there anybody here who has not been on Argyle Street in Halifax? Look at that. One person. And of course, it's a bigger city. Yeah, we know that. Lots of vacancies. And this is the way, this is Argyle Street, not Halifax. This is the way it used to be. And why would anybody leave the waterfront? And it's not exactly a flat walk up to Argyle Street if you've been there, and you all have. I mean, it's you have to, and that's their brand. And the brand, by the way, is the perception. Why would we bother? The guy that owns OPA down at the far end started this thing. He was up there with him and Subway across the way, and this was dead zone. Because Halifax put tens of millions of dollars into the waterfront. It's absolutely spectacular. So why would anybody go up Argyle Street? And so they decided, I want to do some restaurants. So he started going into these merchants or these building owners saying, I'd like to make this into a restaurant row. He goes, could you, if I could recruit a restaurant in your space that's empty, would you give them a good deal for the first few years? Because, if there's one more restaurant there, it's still not going to do it. If you can get 10 restaurants there, now all of a sudden people start coming there. See what I mean? By having like businesses grouped together. And so he convinced some of them to do it, and pretty soon he got everybody to do it. And then he went to the city and said, we want to lose all the parking. Can you imagine what would happen here if you said that in Yarmouth? Yeah. Well, and here's what they did. And the city said, if you lose the parking here, and this is why, sidewalk cafes. We want to build these little homemade, things out here, and we know we're going to lose some of the parking spaces. And the city basically said, you know what, if you're willing to lose those parking spaces, I mean, it won't, you can't blame us. We'll let you do it. And what they do is, and I don't know what the arrangement is, it's kind of like you have to show that this falls under your insurance, and you lease that space for like $1 a month or whatever it is, and I have to find out what their deal is. But that's what they do, so the insurance for the space pays for it. And so they did that, and of course you've been there and you've seen it. It's pretty homemade, but everybody does their own thing, and of course they're taking it down. I think they're probably taking it down this week. It's about the time of year they take it down and they store it. And but you know what? It has worked. I show this everywhere I go. I speak at 100 engagements a year, and I show the Argyle Street all the time. So earlier this summer, I went into the OPA and found the owner and said, I got a question for you. And how's this working for you? You have 21 competitors. He goes, Roger, I own 4 of them. And another guy owns 3. And he goes, I'm doing 10 times the business in my first restaurant, and they're all doing well, than I ever did. People are drawn to the critical mass. People were coming from from other areas just to go to Argyle Street. I mean, it is hard to get a place to sit there in the summer months. It is so busy. And now it's spilling. This is 5 Fishermen down on the main drag. It's starting to spill all over downtown Halifax. And you can see how steep it is. I thought that was pretty clever to build those decks like that. And and by the way, when I stay in Halifax, I stay at the Prince George. And you know why? Because it's right next to Argyle Street. That's why I do it. I could stay at all those other places. I'm a Hilton Honors person. I could stay at all those other places. I stay at Prince George because of Argyle Street. And you know what? There it is. 22 restaurants in 2.5 blocks. If you did that, you'd have people come from Halifax here for your dining. And so, major gathering spot. It's a place to hang out. Restaurants are doing very well. And now they're building the convention center. The convention center's not going on the waterfront. It's going right there on Argyle Street. They finished digging the pit, and now I think they're laying foundations. And by the way, it's going to be a convention or a hotel. It's going to be a whole bunch of stuff. But it's right there on Argyle Street. How cool is that? Sometimes you have to orchestrate the effort. So, what you do is what you do in Yarmouth is pick 1 or 2 blocks. Find the property owners that are most willing to play with you. It's public-private partnership. And say, we want to do a demonstration block. We want you to orchestrate the business mix here. We're going to beautify it. We're going to make this such a showcase. And you're saying, well, how do we politically pick the block? You find the one where the property owners, not merchants, the property owners are most willing to play with you on orchestrating the business mix and beautification. This is the age of public-private partnerships. And that's how you do it. And I guarantee you it'll work. It'll start to spread from there. The next thing you need to do in Yarmouth is a wayfinding system. Connect the dots. 20% of people use navigation systems, but we use navigation systems when we already know where we're going. You know what? Wayfinding tells us about stuff we might not know about. And so they should always be decorative to fit your brand. This is Appleton, Wisconsin. They have these that tell you where you are in downtown, but see that sign right there? $600. $600, it's anodized aluminum, it's stainless steel hardware, it has an aqueous coating on it so that ice, snow won't stick to it, graffiti won't even stick to it, and $600. They put up 18 of those and their retail sales went up about 10%. And they put them on existing power poles. You know, this is Oak Harbor, Washington State. You know, they have one set for local services and another set for visitors. So these are all things you can do. Make it a priority. And by the way, we have never found a community that did wayfinding that did not see a return on the investment in increased retail sales and services. Connect the dots. And that's what you need to do. This here was about $1,500 because it's a freestanding sign. By the way, one thing you'll notice about all these wayfinding signs, there's never more than 5 items on a sign. And here's the general rule, and sorry, speaking feet and inches, 1-inch tall letters for every 20 feet of viewing distance. That's why those little downtown signs you have, you can't see them. You can't even see them if you walk up to them. Yeah. It's right there. But see, yeah, you just don't know. And so think about visitors. Think about visitors. They come up off the ferry. They come up, they see the welcome to Yarmouth. They come up the hill. Now what? Now what do? Do we turn right? Do we turn left? Do we turn right and just leave town? Do we turn left? Are there some attractions up there? Is there something to say, wow, we should wait a second. Before we head somewhere else, let's check this out. Wayfinding. You need to do it. You're absolutely right. And that's as a local. Yeah, okay. Okay. You're not a local until you've been here like 30 years. Isn't that the general rule? For sure. Like a visitor. Yeah. And so 1, 2, 3, 4 items. 1, 2, 3, 4. In this one, you know, and so there you go. This is Barrie, Ontario. So, you know, and what they did in Barrie, Ontario, that is their general wayfinding. But then when you get in downtown, it's kind of downtown. It's got a funky brand to it. So it's the same shape and everything, but there's their wayfinding for downtown. That's what you need to do, wayfinding. It plays a role in your branding efforts, which I'm going to talk about. It's a major component in your marketing efforts. It reinforces a positive experience. It increases spending. And it educates visitors and locals about what you got and where it's located. Wayfinding. And there's no such thing as saying, and it builds community pride, there's no such thing as saying, well, we're in the age of navigation systems. Wrong-o. We are in the age of navigation systems, but that's, you know, I came here today, I typed in the address for this church on my navigation system. So we can type in the navigation system or on a smartphone things we're already looking for. I can look at points of interest. 60% of them are going to be wrong. That's why you need wayfinding. And it's as much a science as an art. It is not a public works type of project. And you can even do pedestrian wayfinding if you need to down the road that tells you these are different districts in Kalamazoo, Michigan, you know, or, you know, think about Disney. I mean, you want to know about people, talk to Disney. about wayfinding signage, kiosk, all these kinds. This is pedestrian wayfinding. You know, I told them in Chester they ought to do pedestrian wayfinding like these. Isn't that cool? So that once we're on foot, you know, because once we're on foot here, we might walk up the street and go to some of your historic homes. Here's a rule about visitation. If you can get people to spend 2 hours, spending will double. 2 hours, spending will double. And, you know, a lot of times I've had communities in Nova Scotia say, yeah, we just need to keep that road construction even more tightened up. You know, so they can't get through the road. I'm saying, well, that's not exactly what I had in mind about the 2 hours. If you can get them to spend the night, they spend 4 times more than the 2-hour person, than a day visitor. We have all kinds of videos. I have this whole video library. It's got a whole thing about designing a wayfinding system, the 20 ingredients on outstanding downtown. And you might, as a community, you might say, hey, we want to sign up for your library. It's like $45 a month. And I'm not here to sell stuff. But I just think it's worth you seeing like the wayfinding one because it tells you how much it costs, how to develop it, what's all included and all that stuff because I don't have time to go into those details. Yes, ma'am. Really? Well, phase it. Yeah, implement it. And by the way, you can always phase a wayfinding sign, but the one thing you can't do is put one arrow up that tells you somewhere and then never have it connect. But a lot of times you can do phased wayfinding, which is say, well, hey, we only have $10,000 a year, so we're going to phase it in over 10 years. You know, and so, but yeah, do it. I mean, how many studies do you need sitting on a shelf gathering dust? I mean, you know, by the way, you're not alone. This is everywhere. So, you know, because that there, you know what? Not working for you. You know. And so we did see here, we saw upcoming public event. We see the Seafest pageant. But we were trying to figure out if there was, we didn't know if this is more of just locals. Is there things for visitors like plays, performances? We don't know. If there is, you got to put something up somewhere, a little brochure rack that we can just grab and say, wow, it's an invitation to come back. We knew that this one was coming up, but there was nothing else. I'd probably put Seafest pageant, July 18th, and then put another one down there if there's anything else going on there. Just another opportunity. Looked like a great place. And then the ferry terminal. You know what I would do? I have 2 words for you. Roundup. I may not be environmentally correct with that, but Roundup. I mean, you know what you want to do is if, I don't know, you know, I even said if you have to climb over the fence and spray the weeds, by spraying the weeds and killing the weeds, at least it gives a sense of hope. This gives you a sense of despair. So even if it's a volunteer effort, go clean it up. And now you can just, I would put signs on these fences and everything, say, coming soon, a ferry. Even though you might be 6 months away, and even though they're still doing all their feasibility and everything's going on it, I don't even know all the workings. I know that you selected somebody, but it gives us hope. Clean it up. Just make it, just the weeds. I mean, I understand it being fenced off and everything, but this just looks like a town that's going to be a ghost town in 5 years. And it's not fair, but we'll judge the book by the cover. You know, and so, you know, put up large signs, ferry service coming this spring or next spring or whatever, something. So number 10, make a list of all these suggestions I gave you. We're going to get you the report, make a list of them, and start dividing them. And you can say, well, we don't like this one, we're not going to do it. Remember, these are just suggestions, not recommendations. There was nothing I put up there other than wayfinding that would cost very much. And a lot of these things are things merchants and businesses need to do. And then you can come and develop an action plan out of it. Work with GPS mapping companies, because a lot of your businesses are not on them and they're not correct. There you go, 20%. By the way, this is growing at 10% a year. So in a couple years, you'll have 50% of people will have these navigation systems. That still doesn't replace wayfinding, by the way, because wayfinding tells us about stuff we don't know about. NavTech. NavTech is the main map provider, and I'm going to give you a URL in a minute. But on their website, right up there, it says Map Reporter. A business can go up there, click on Map Reporter and say, you know, here's my real location, you have it wrong, or you don't have me listed at all, or you can go to Map Reporter and say that business went out of business. You can go into Map Reporter and go in there and change these things. And they update the maps like every month. So, one thing I would have you do is go get volunteers that have like TomTom. I have a Garmin that I take with me, a little Garmin Nuvi that I take with me. Some people use their cell phones, and have them go test them. They can type in points of interest, points of interest like restaurants, and are they right? I'll tell you a funny story. It's on the Eastern Shore. You know where the Liscombe Lodge is? I was parked right smack in front of the Liscombe Lodge restaurant. I went right in front of it, like this far away. I put on my navigation system, nearest restaurants. Sheet Harbor, 40 kilometers away. It didn't list any of the restaurants in Sherbrooke. It didn't list the Liscombe Lodge right in front of me. It had me going all the way to Sheet Harbor, and it listed one restaurant there that has been gone for like 5 years, and one other restaurant there, and it missed the other 3 that were actually even there. And the problem is they're trying to do this for the world. There's no way they can keep this up to date. So Navtech handles them for all those devices, plus Yahoo Maps, Bing Maps, Nokia Maps, MapQuest. They also do it for radio like XM and Sirius. And so I'll give you the URL for this in a minute. But they're the main provider. And then there's Google and TeleAtlas. And TomTom provides data for TomTom and Apple's iOS 6 and iOS 7. And Google does its own maps, and here are your URLs. And this will be in the report, but the big one is mapreporter.navtech.com, and Navtech with a Q. And that is the main one. And then there's TeleAtlas right there, and these will all provide all these, google.com/places for business. Google is huge now. It's growing really fast as a map provider. Any questions? Oh, good.
Onto the web, and they're going to link it up to video.
Oh, that's great. Google Locations. Okay. I'll check that out.
A new algorithm called Hummingbird.
Okay.
It's going to revolutionize. Google was big before. It's going to take over everything.
Great. And by the way, I want to give you another reason why you should beautify your downtown. You know what site selectors do bringing businesses into towns? They use Google Street View. That's what we do. We go right into Google Street View. We can walk down your streets. By the way, one thing you need to understand is the heart and soul of every community, besides its people, is its downtown. It is the litmus test for any investor on the health and wealth of its community. Seriously. That's what they do. So like that Google Street View, you beautify your downtown, people are going to walk, and what we can do is I can go into almost any town in Canada, even in Nova Scotia, and I can walk down your streets. Do I want to go there? Do I want to live there? Yeah. So that's good. Google Locations. Well, check it out. Thank you. Yeah, it's awesome. So, Yarmouth needs a focus. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time on this. One of the biggest challenges you have is that you have 2 bookends. And when I'm done today, I have to drive to the other bookend, Sydney. You have Sydney on that end, you have Yarmouth on this end, and neither town has any kind of a focus. What are you about? What are you about? Even the Cabot Trail, I said, you're one of the 10 greatest drives in the world. But you know what? Once we've driven it, we've been there, we've done that. You need to focus on the music and the food. You know, the Celtic music and the heritage and, you know, and all of that. And focus on the experience. But boy, Yarmouth, I cannot figure out what you're about. And the same with Sydney. Sydney, they have cruise ships going there. They get off, they have a huge fiddle, which is really a cool icon. And then I go in there downtown and there's pole banners everywhere. They say, follow the fiddles. I couldn't find anybody playing any fiddles or any music anywhere in Sydney. I have to go to Mabu on the other side of the Cabot Trail to find it, or Bedeck. What are you about? So I want to talk about branding for a minute because I think it's so important. Why you should do this. 90% of all Canadians now have access to the internet. Immediately. On cell phones, on tablets, on laptops, you name it, at home, at work, at school. And out of that group, 94%, 19 out of 20 people use the internet to decide where they're going to live, where they're going to work, where they're going to play, where they're going to invest. Don't you? We all do. 94%. And so, every community, every destination in Nova Scotia is at our fingertips in a fraction of a second. And by the way, they all have seacoast drives. They all have fishing. They all have museums. And one of the biggest challenges you have in Nova Scotia is people don't stand out. If I'm coming into Halifax, I have no clue whether to go to the Eastern Shore, the Southern Shore, the Blue Nose Coast, the Cabot Trail, the Northumberland Shore. All of these shores and everything. Because they all say the same thing. What sets you apart? And so that's what you have to understand. We type in things. When we go to use the restaurant, I typed in seafood restaurants plus Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, and I put them in parentheses to keep them together, and I still got 40,000 results in 0.32 seconds. When we go to the web, we don't type in, I wonder what's going on in Yarmouth this weekend. We don't type in Yarmouth. What we do is we type in, I'm looking for job opportunities in Southwest Nova Scotia. I'm looking for an Italian restaurant in Yarmouth. I'm looking for horseback riding in Central Nova Scotia. I'm looking for homes in this area. But you notice what we're doing here? We always put in the experience first and a general location second. So what's your experience? Have you ever gone to the web and said, let's type in Cole Harbour and see if anything's going on there this weekend? You don't. And that's what you have to understand. It's always second to that one thing that puts you on the map. We're not looking for your community. Get over it. We're looking for things to do that cater to us specifically. Somebody in Nova Scotia should be the stargazing capital. Somebody should be the equestrian capital. Not everybody can be the seafood capital. And by the way, you have the best seafood on the planet. You do. Yeah, but you really do. But you know what? I can get it anywhere. I don't have to drive all the way to Yarmouth. You need to figure out why you. And so, we're drowning in marketing and advertising overload. As a matter of fact, we're exposed to 5,000 marketing messages a day. Whether it's on brochures, license plate frames, signs, billboards. Heck, you get assaulted with 5,000 marketing messages anytime you get off of 103 and pull up to an intersection. They're all right there. You know what I'm talking about. 40, 50 signs. Jeez. As a matter of fact, you come down 103, the closer you get to Yarmouth, the worse it gets with all those signs. Particularly over by Liverpool and that area. And because we're so overloaded with marketing, we only remember things that cater us. So if I hear something about equestrian and that doesn't appeal to me, it just goes over my head. But if I happen to be somebody that likes, if I hear the word equestrian or horse trails or something and that caters to me, it pops a receptor in my brain and go, what? I tune in. So whatever it is, see what I mean? So what sets you apart? And so if you want to be the destination choice, what do you have that the people you're hoping to attract can't get or do closer to home? Why should somebody take that ferry over to Yarmouth? Why? Because you know what? Hopefully they're coming to Yarmouth for Yarmouth, not because the ferry stops here and they're going to go somewhere else. So why would they do it? And so we have what sets you apart from everyone else. Why should somebody invest here? Why should somebody move here? Why should somebody visit you? Tell me why. What do you have that's different? There you go. By the way, if you're better, it better be because of third-party endorsement, not because you say it's better. We will skip over a similar activity closer to home if you have it so much better. Just about, there you go. I mean, come on, and that's a problem. And by the way, the two most overused words in tourism are three words: Outdoor recreation. Name a place in Canada that doesn't have it. And then the other word, unique. It's so overused. It's become, it's now means just like everyone else. Oh, we have unique shops and restaurants. Really? You know, here's what you need to do. 7 things you need to know. Logos and slogans are not brands. That's not what we're talking about. Have you ever gone anywhere because they had a great logo? Man, I think we ought to head over to Liverpool. I really think they have a cool logo. Or have you said, you know, I don't really want to go to Shelburne because I think their logo sucks. By the way, I don't know. I can't remember what Shelburne's logo looks like. I just made that up on the spur of the moment. But that's the point. This is not about logos. I mean, do you buy Reebok over Nike because you think the Nike swoosh is the dumbest logo ever? Of course not. Do you buy Chevy over Ford or the other way around because you like one logo better than the other? So it's not about that. They're just marketing messages to support your brand. Number 2, a brand is what people think of you. When you say, I'm from Yarmouth, or wherever you're from, Argyle, you know, Clare, wherever you're from. It's when you say, this is where I'm from, what is the first thing that comes to mind? You know, the other day somebody came up and said, you know, yeah, I'm from Liverpool. And he said, and I was visiting friends somewhere else in the province and said, yeah, and you know, we're in Liverpool. And they said, oh, that's so sad about your mill. You know, that's all they know is, oh, the mill closed. Now what are we going to do and everything? That's the perception, you know, and it's very unfortunate for them. But that's what a brand is. It's what people think of you. And it starts with visual cues. We're driving by. What do we see? And you may say, well, gee whiz, thanks a lot. That's not very fair, but that's what people do. People attitudes, word of mouth, publicity. I mean, these days, your brand, social media, whew, instant. You know, like the Rod Resort, that's a brand. The perception people have it now when they go there and they read how bad it is. You know, or a brand for ye old Argyler. Wow, great people, awesome job, great burgers. That's a brand. So it's not about slogans and logos. It's also a promise that you'll deliver on that perception. And all brands have a narrow focus. Have you ever gone anywhere because they had something for everyone? We don't. We go where there's something for us. You know, look at this. Discover the wide open spacious, gracious appeal, picturesque landscapes characterizes Pugwash, Nova Scotia. How many of you have been to Pugwash? It's a great town. Okay, some of you. Each season holds the promise of a new adventure and incredible memory. Come join us in Pugwash and discover the scenic and recreational opportunities that await you. Having read that now, how many of you are now going to make a special trip to Pugwash? Go ahead, raise your hands. Boy, you're a mean bunch. But you know that wasn't written for Pugwash. That was written for Nelson, British Columbia. Here's the point. If I go on your website, I go on your brochures, I could take out the name of Yarmouth or whatever town you're in and plug somebody else's town in there and it still rings true, you just lost a sale. Did you know that 97% of community-based marketing is ineffective? 97%, because you're trying to be all things to all people in an age where we can go on the internet and find what we want. You cannot be all things to all people. You find your niche and promote it like crazy. You must jettison the generic. If you go Google jettison the generic, you're going to find like 10 pages of me on there. Jettison the generic. Don't just market what you have, market what differentiates you. So, number 4, brands are built on product, not marketing. Where's the product that backs it up? You know, I'll never forget this when I assessed Digby. And I went into 3 different restaurants there and said, do you serve Digby scallops? And they said, well, I think some of them are from Digby. I mean, if you have a brand and you can't even get it in your own town, you know, you see what I mean? Where's the product? So whatever you're going to be about, the product better be there to back it up. Jefferson, Texas, a little teeny town of 2,500 is the antique capital of Texas. You know what? They have 125 antique dealers in their downtown. That's an antique dealer for every 20 residents. People drive 4 hours from Dallas to do their antiquing there. And because they drove so far, they're spending the night. And now they're the official B&B capital of Texas. Look at the population. Jackson Hole, Wyoming, 12,000, the home of Western art, Western living, the Aboriginal bronze cowboy and Indian sculptures, the bear sheepskin rugs, you know, all that mountain living kind of stuff. Look at their population. In their downtown, they have 110 galleries in Western Living Shop. People come from around the world to go to Jackson, Wyoming. You notice Jackson Hole, but Jackson, Wyoming. That's the power of narrowing your focus. And tourism brands are built on things to do, not things to look at. One of the biggest challenges in Nova Scotia is, you know what, once I've been to the Hank Snow Museum, I've been there, I've done it. Once I've been to the Stan Rogers Festival once a year in Kansas, I've been there, I've done it. You have all these famous people. I see them on the signs, hockey players and Olympians and everything. And I'm going, you know what, it's not a sustainable brand. There you go. Tourism organizations tend to send cities, towns, and counties. Wrong geography. That's why I'm trying to get the province out of promoting geography. It's hard to do because we're geographically bound. You know what I mean? Northwest, southwest, you know, Northumberland, eastern, you know. Visitors don't care about that stuff. And you never use focus groups. That's a good way to kill a branding effort. You'll end up with, come to Yarmouth. We have something for everyone. You never roll out a brand until you can deliver on the promise, because it is a promise. So if you say you're something, we better find it when we're here. And they always start with a plan. Here's how you do it. And I'm going to give you the step-by-step process. And this is a 13-step process. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because I don't have a lot of time and I want to leave some time for Q&A. I'm going to give you one. This is Old Strathcona, which is a revitalization zone in Edmonton. And granted, it's a little bigger because, you know, the population is 1.2 in Edmonton, and Old Strathcona is about 70,000. So I know it's a lot bigger, but I just want to show you the process. Here's what you do. You start with a brand development committee. I call them a brand development team because I hate the word committee. Brand development team. And on that team, you would have these kinds of people would be on it. So you can do this. And by the way, I would do the brand for Yarmouth. For Clare, for Argyle, for, you know, some of the other Woods Harbor, and for the other ones, you always start with your main thing. You know what? As Yarmouth goes, so does the entire southwest Nova Scotia goes. I could say it's the same thing for the lower part of Cape Breton and Sydney. As you go, you do. You'll always start with your nucleus and then let it spread from there. Now, I think that Liverpool needs to do the same thing. Shelburne needs the same thing. The challenge with Argyle and Clare, I mean, you know, I'll never forget when Jeanette said that, oh yeah, I want you to assess these 3 towns. I didn't realize these 3 towns were like 250 kilometers long, you know. And so, but see what I mean? So it's hard to brand something that's so stretched out. But Yarmouth, you can do that. These are the kind of people, by the way, never more than 13 people. And by the way, you know why I always say 13 people? The bigger the committee, the less likely are to ever get anything actually accomplished. The mayor's going, amen to that. So, number 2, education outreach. You put together your team. Now we're going to go ask people. So we did, in Old Strathcona, 390 people weighed in. And here's what you do. Here's your opportunity to weigh in on Yarmouth's future. That'll get people to respond. And you do an online survey. Or you can do little table tents with QR codes or whatever. You put the URL on website homepages, newspaper, radio. You put it out there. And you don't mind hearing from visitors, too. You want to know, what should we be known for? And then you figure out, who are we trying to attract? Are you trying to attract people just off a ferry? Are you trying to attract people from Halifax? Where are you trying to attract people from? You know, start with that. In their case, they said, well, we want the old, first of all, obviously, you want your own residents to spend more time and money here. Wouldn't that be cool? Because you know what? I'll bet you have a lot of leakage. That's called locally earned money being spent somewhere else. Communities can't survive very long on that. It's just like a business. If you leak out more than you bring in, guess what happens? You're in bankruptcy court. Residents, you start with that. Then the neighborhoods nearby. And then visitors to Edmonton. In your case, we say, okay, we start with Yarmouth, then we're going to start with our shorelines, both directions, and eventually we'd love it if the people that lived along the Blue Nose Coast, that area, you know, the South Shore, if they also came over here. You know, and I imagine Bridgewater wants some of that. They're kind of a service center. And then they did this. This is what they did, and there's their demographic. That's who they're looking for. And by the way, did you notice that? The boomers always follow the younger generation, much to their chagrin. But they do. University crowd, they have a university there. And then they want the creative class. They want the young, vibrant, they want the creative class, people in their 20s and 30s. You know, and that's downtown. That's in Old Strathcona right there. Then what we did is we asked them. Now we compile what they said and we put it all together. We break it into, and look at that. Always do what you're afraid to do. Start with the sorting process. Number one, somebody's going to say, oh, we have this great architecture here in Yarmouth. We have Victorian, we've got the seaport architecture. We're a friendly community. We have historic architecture. We have a beautiful setting. We have a beautiful park. We have all these things. So I always say, put those over in the feeling side. Then the next thing you're going to hear from people, this is when they weigh in. They say, oh, we have really great trails. Whoop-de-doo. Oh, we have all kinds of kayaking, canoeing. Yeah, well, you know. And by the way, we're not throwing these under the bus, but there's going to be things we do while we're here, not the reason we came. And so that's what you're doing with those. All those things we could find anywhere, but we're setting those aside. And then those are really significantly different. And those are the ones you run through a feasibility test. And I'm not going to go through all that. And by the way, I couldn't find a picture of falling Canadian money. And by loonies and toonies fall too fast. But you build your brand on feasibility. That's how you get past the politics. So what happens is you ask the people, you figure out which one of all these ideas is the most feasible, and then you go back and sell it to the people. If you go back and say, what do you think? You're never going to get everybody to agree, and all of a sudden you're just going to take a beating. And here's the feasibility test. There it is. By the way, can the community buy into over time? If you came up, I got a good idea for you. What if you became the Atlantic Canada's Sin City? What do you think? Like Las Vegas. A couple of people back there going, yes. No, I'm kidding. Now, the reason, you know what? Will the community ever buy into that? No, of course not. So you want something they can buy into, but it's not you're going to go back and ask for permission. You just want to make sure it's something they could get used to or something, and that's probably not going to be it, by the way. I put that out there because it was kind of an obvious one. This gets me in trouble every time. You cannot build your brand on past history. That's one of the biggest problems you have in Nova Scotia. You don't ever move forward. You stick back. Well, 100 years ago we did it this way. Well, you know what? How's that working for you today? History isn't a point in time. Today is the first day of the rest of your lives. I mean, how does the private sector invest in Hank Snow I could name any other of these people. How does he invest? You know, how does the private, this is tax base. And sometimes we get so, and by the way, I think you need to embrace your history. I think it's really important. But you know what? Someday you got to move forward. How much does it cost when you see a return on investment, both public and private? How wide an audience will it attract? We want a niche, but not one that's too narrow. Does it have legs? If you want to be the sports capital of Nova Scotia, can we say we're going to start by being the hockey capital, then we're going to add baseball on it, then we're going to add soccer on it, and pretty soon you are the sports capital. If you want to be the sport fishing capital of Nova Scotia, can we start with tuna fishing, and then we do some other kind or tuna fish, halibut, whatever it is. Can we start doing that, and then we do lobster fishery, whatever it is. And then pretty soon you own the brand. Can we make it obvious? When we drive into Yarmouth, this is where your wayfinding signs, your pole banners and everything. And will it extend our seasons? You know, in Canso, I said, you know what? You're home of the, Stan Rogers Festival. It's fantastic. They have like 5,000 people go there for 3 days. Said, what's your brand the other 362 days of the year? You know, if you want to be the snowmobile capital, say, what's your brand the other 6 months of the year? And you could do a split brand where you have a seasonal brand. And then do we have those who are tirelessly championing the cause? Because you know what? You're narrowing your focus. And then is it based on things to do, not things to look at? Things to look at, we do it once and we've been there, we've done it, we go, we leave. That's the problem with most of the museums. And then you create the brand leadership team. We start with the brand development committee. They develop whatever the brand is, and now we need to know who's going to lead the effort. And I'm going to go through this. When odds are 1 in a million, be that one. I love this quote. Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body. Oops. Oh, where'd it go? It's not there. Well, there's more to it, and it says, rather than in a well-preserved body, but rather to skid in sideways in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up and yelling, wow, what a ride. Yeah. And by the way, your champion should be under the age of 40. The future of Yarmouth isn't with people my age, it's with the people that are in their 20s, 30s, and young 40s. That is who should lead this effort. They are your future. I just couldn't get a picture of a couple of young people on a scooter doing that. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing it ever has. That's Margaret Mead. Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. That's my personal motto. And I love this one. A diamond is merely a lump of coal that did well under pressure. Because, and by the way, the city of Yarmouth, your elected officials cannot lead this effort. They can fund it, but that's why you have these committees and teams. Here's why. How many of you are there elected officials in this audience? Raise your hands. Okay, we got several. You were elected to be all things to all people. Brands aren't. How big a council do you have? 6. Do you think you could ever come to a consensus on a brand right there? And you wouldn't be alone. You wouldn't be alone. That's the problem. So what you have is this is the private sector is leading the effort, and then they will come to the city and city, we decided we want to be known for this in Yarmouth. We only need your help, which is appropriate. Otherwise, you'll kill it right there. We've worked in 1,000 communities, and I always tell people I feel sorry for the first 200 that we worked with because you know what? We didn't know. We have done this process now, and we have a 100% success rate. And by the way, you could do this. I'm telling you the steps, and we're going to give it to you in a report. There's their champions. By the way, there's only 2 of those champions that stuck. It's usually 1 or 2 people. Murray and Stephen right there. They're the 2 that are really, really pushing this thing forward. Everybody else is gung-ho, and then they kind of flitter away. Somebody's just say, well, gee, if we narrow our focus on that, I don't agree with that. I think we have so much more than that. Why are we narrowing our focus so far? Or I don't like that idea. I'm a chamber member. I pay my dues, and I don't like that idea. I guess my ideas don't count. I know that would never happen in Yarmouth. Without strong champions, your branding efforts will die, period. Flat out. Number 6, where's the product? Now we know what the brand is. What's the product that backs it up? You know, in the case of Edmonton Central Gathering Place, they want the people that are in their young, their 30s. We need plazas. So we wanted them to create a place called Ovation Plaza. This is right across from a hotel, and they have this empty lot here that used to be an Imperial Oil site, or Champion Oil. And we thought, man, could we take that site right there? And here it is from the ground level. We want to turn it into that. People love plazas, particularly young people. Plazas. And by the way, it has this water feature right here. You can turn that off and put chairs here and do concerts on the stage. I mean, that's what they needed. And so other public projects that were part of theirs, wayfinding system, cleaner streetscapes, buskers, street artisans, lighted trees, retail beautification, all of these things were on their things. This is all the product. All brands are built on product. Now we know what the brand is. We know what the product is. Now we have to write the brand promise. Notice it's step number 7 out of 13. And a brand promise needs to be unique to you. There it is. This is where Edmonton comes to celebrate, period. Healthy living, friends and family, food, music, and the arts. But this is where they come to celebrate. Life of the Edmonton Party. Somebody needs to be the life of the Nova Scotia Party. But, you know, that's what they did. That's what they did. It's fun. Creating the good things in life, Old Strathcona. That's what they're about, is celebration. That's their key word. And now we know what it is. We know what the product is and everything. Now we create the look and feel. The place to celebrate the good things in life. So see what they did? Remember, they're skewing it young. Make your status worth updating. Celebrating Tyler's birthday on White Ave. If anybody's been to Edmonton, you know White Ave is the place where everybody goes and hangs out. And so that's what they did. Ice on White Festival. So they did. They geared it. They knew who they were attracting. They knew where they were attracting. They know what their brand was. It was a feeling. University of Alberta graduate, time to celebrate. This is Old Strathcona, Life of the Edmonton Party. There you go, celebrating North America's largest fringe festival. That's what they're about. Look at this. They even used a real TripAdvisor review up here. Amazing. Celebrating Girls' Night Out. Celebrating the Re-Energize Me. That's what their stationery looks like. It's all celebratory. You know, there's their website. It's fabulous. So that's what it looks like. And now you say, now what's the action plan? And by the way, branding, what is it you want to be known for, Yarmouth? Development, what do we have to do to own it? Marketing, how do we tell the world? And the days of strategic plans are over. Got that? We're in the age of action plans, a to-do list. And you know what? A typical action plan, you know, strategies, goals, and objectives, 3 pages is plenty. An action plan. Here's a description of the recommendation. Here's who's charged with implementing. It takes a village. Do you have a Chamber of Commerce? Do you have a historical society? Do you have a waterfront society? Do you have a school district? Do you have a hospital board? I mean, it takes a village to do one of these. How much will it cost? Where will the money come from? You got to address those things. Otherwise, you get another plan sitting on a shelf gathering dust. When would it be done? And what's the rationale for doing it? That's an action plan. And by the way, this is the one for Alpena, Michigan. But you know what? These action plans, there's number 28, number 27, 28. I mean, you know what? An action plan, 50 pages is plenty. You go out and hire consultants and give you a 300-page plan because it looks like it's a lot of value. And do you ever read past the executive summary? You know, that's the problem. That's how you get everyone on the same page. There's the typical Economic Development Express. Does that look about right? It's really cruising along, isn't it? You know what's really fun? When you do one of these action plans, everybody has their to-do list. A Chamber of Commerce, tourism, economic development. Everybody has their to-do list, and you go from that to that. And that's why you do this. And number 10, you make something happen. They just put up pole banners. Just something so that somebody could see something. You know, their wayfinding signage is going to look like this. And they're just now getting, by the way, they just did this less than a year ago. Keep the energy high and don't fold to the naysayers. There will always be naysayers. And so they're doing stuff like that. See what it says at the bottom? Throw away your bigotry. Have fun with it. You know? Thank goodness I had that Y in there. Otherwise, we could never have done it. You know, and look at men's clothing store, white collar. Bakery, white bread. Sushi bar, white rice. Wedding shop, white wedding. There's a whole bunch of businesses in Old Strathcona now changing their business names. Is that fun or what? White Christmas, white hot. You know, all of these things. You know, white noise, sounds of the neighborhood. What is your brand? Forget all the reasons why something may not work. You only need to find one good reason why it will. Period. Don't fold to the cavers. You know what cavers are? You probably have one or two in Yarmouth and in the whole area. Citizens against virtually everything. About right, isn't it? And, oh yeah, one or two, sometimes 1 or 2 dozen. Tell the world. And finally, last one is never give up and revisit the plan every 3 months, if not sooner. It's a to-do list. That is how you do this. And that is what they are doing. And that is how it's going to work. So, and I think you start with the downtown Yarmouth and then let it grow from there. Start with your core, the nucleus, and then let it grow. And I want to do 4 quick examples before we run out of time, almost out of time already. And I just want to show you these really quickly, and I'll just kind of go through them quickly. They became the industrial art and design capital. You know, industrial art and design, you know, and they have a college there, community college there. 2-year college. You know what they did? Changed this entire curriculum to industrial art and design. Now they have students coming from all over the United States to go there. York, Pennsylvania. It was a dying dead town. Look at their ads. Is that cool? The attraction is more than just scientific. You know, I mean, there it is. Full-page ad concept. Look at that. Even it says Market District right here. It's made out of gears. Everything's industrial art and design. Even their wayfinding signage is going to look like that. They even have some guys they created a company called Salvaging Creativity, and they make all this kind of cool public art. It's all industrial and everything. They're living it. And, you know, they took look at these. These are all welding balls. Look what they did with them. Is that cool or what? Industrial art and design. You know what? Harley-Davidson moved their design shop to York, Pennsylvania. They're now manufacturing Harley-Davidsons in York. Wow. That's the power. You know, this is all stuff in their downtown. More of the story, sometimes they already had a core there. You just had to dig it out. They had a guy there that did glass work for museums and stuff all over the world. And he said, I need people to do woodworking and steelworking. They had York wall coverings, the famous wall coverings. York peppermint patties. That's where they come from. York, Pennsylvania. Ashland, Oregon, 23,000. By the way, Ashland, Oregon, 300 miles north of Sacramento, 300 miles, I'm talking miles, not kilometers, south of Portland, Oregon. Nobody lives. The nearest big city there is Medford, Oregon, population 40,000. Dying timber industry, seasonal tourism, you know, there they are, right down there. There's Portland, Oregon, there's Sacramento, California's right there. There they are. So, 300 miles. There's downtown Ashland. It's not even on the interstate. It's like 3 or 4 miles, 7 kilometers off the freeway. You know what they did is they put in a stage. They decided to be a Shakespeare festival. So they put in this cool stage right there called the Elizabethan, and there it is. It used to be all lawn, and then they added these chairs. And then they built a second theater right there called the Angus Bomer. And then there's the inside of that theater. Pretty cool. And then they added on that outdoor one, they added this whole thing on it. So they had those lower chairs there. Then they added this all on it. And there it is. That's kind of looking back there. And there it is, all outdoors. Then they built this one in 2002. So they have 3 theaters. And so they built that one. There it is inside. And they can change this all around. And it's all on 3 acres. It's the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And so they did that. And so they built that there. And they've got all these, you can see where the different theaters are. You know, and they've got a little practice stage there. They've got a green show stage. And this is right, by the way, this is downtown right here. And let's see, there we go, parking garage. There's a little green show stage, which is outside, so you could call it 4 theaters, so to speak. And it has all kinds of choral groups like that, or guitarists, or whatever, just musicians coming in and playing out on the green show stage. There it is. This is the core downtown. Smaller than yours. And they're rated one of America's top 5 regional theaters. They do 11 productions a year. And only 4 of them are Shakespeare, and they're usually modernized. So they do Cat in a Hot Tin Roof and all different kinds of different shows. There you go, only 4 are Shakespeare, and that's Shakespeare, but it's modernized. Look at that. They have 2,000 seats. They sell 90 to 96% sold out. Here's the scoop. It's 9 months of the year, 6 days a week, and they sell 96% of the seats. Ashland, Oregon only hosts 460,000 annual visitors a year. A year. But the average stay is 4 nights, and 88% come back every year or every other year. That is tourism. It's certainly a lot cheaper to get people to come back than to always get new customers. Can you imagine if you did something like, I'm not going to say you have to do this one, can you imagine people are coming over every year on the ferry to attend the festival? My wife's family has been going to Ashland from Seattle, Washington, a 7-hour drive every year for 25 years. And they rent like a whole bunch of houses and everything. 88% return. 125,000 attendees, and they do average 4.2 over 3 days. Average stay is 4 nights. That is powerful. And look at that, 88% travel at least 125 miles, a couple hundred kilometers. And by the way, look at their festival's budget. That's millions. $27 million a year, 300 full-time employees year-round and another 200 part-time. And you know what? Tech companies and everything are going there, not because of the Shapers Festival, because they like being in that atmosphere of all these creative people. So if that town can do it, look at that. 78% is through earned income. The rest is through, through earned interest and other things. But that's earned income, ticket sales, and product sales. Look at the economic impact. $168 million a year. How would you like to have it in Yarmouth? You have this potential. Somebody in the Atlantic provinces could do something like this. Downtown Ashland, look at this. 100% retail occupancy. That used to have pigeons flying in it. It was an abandoned hotel. They were a timber industry. You know how it is to lose your core industry? And you know what? It's $300 a night now. It runs at about 97% occupancy year-round. That is the power of brand. As a matter of fact, in Ashland, Oregon, it costs a third more to live there than other places in Oregon, and you make a third less, and people are willing to pay more and make less because they want to be in that atmosphere. Moral of the story, be patient. It took a while for theirs to happen. Alpena, Michigan, I'm going to show you this one, and then I better skip over the last couple. But very seasonal, that was their problem. Not much to do because everybody in Michigan was going over to the other side of the state. So we wanted them to be the sanctuary. I gave this to the Eastern Shore. I said, Eastern Shore, you should be Nova Scotia's sanctuary coast. Isn't that perfect for them? I mean, it is peaceful over there. I mean, I was sitting there at the Liscombe Lodge the other day, and I'm just going, oh my gosh. They need to do Alpena's thing because it's a whole different market. And we did this, so we can give it to. I said, you should be Nova Scotia's sanctuary coast. It's a feeling, not a geography lesson. We need to figure that out for the Southwest Shore, the Acadian Shore. Sanctuary of the Great Lakes. There they are. Thunder Bay, 200 shipwrecks out there. And this is Thunder Bay in Michigan, not Thunder Bay, Ontario. We thought, man, could they do that? Look at that. Doesn't that look like it would be a sanctuary? You know, can you imagine doing this? I mean, I said you could be open year-round. You could have writers' conferences out there at the Liscombe Lodge in January and February, romantic escapes. Put fireplace in the room where we can go out there in January and curl up with a good book. Who cares about the weather? It's a sanctuary. You know what? You can't get cell access there. Perfect. We just turn lemons into lemonade. You know, get rid of all the TVs. It's a sanctuary. Wouldn't that be cool? You know, look at this. We thought, man, you could be, I mean, one of the biggest problems in Nova Scotia, you put all your emphasis in stuff that's outdoors, and then you wonder why you're so seasonal. All this stuff you could do inside. All this stuff. Well, except for the snowshoeing, you know, and then some of that. But you get the idea. And so all of a sudden it makes a big difference. Wouldn't it be cool? That's what we did for Alpena. This is my sanctuary. Or this might be my sanctuary. You could define your sanctuary. You know, there you go. This is my sanctuary. You know? And so that's what they did. And so we thought, boy, for the Eastern Shore, that could work. Now you got to figure out one for you. You know, even their vehicles are going to look like that. Is that cool or what? And that's what you need to know. My video doesn't work. Find your greatest asset and find a way to leverage it. You know, you do have Cabot Trail. You want a scenic drive, Cabot Trail is always going to pop up on everybody's list first. Cayley's, Mabu, Cayley Trail would make sense. Maybe a little bit bedecked. I mean, that's where they probably have the most of them. Nova Scotia wines are going to go to the Annapolis Valley. Yes, we do want them to come to Petite Riviere, but you know what? They got 9 or 10 in the Annapolis Valley. I mean, that's a fairly new brand. It works pretty good. They got Yost and Grand Pré and all those up there. Digby for scallops, if we can actually get some in Digby. Skyline Trail, maybe the Bouncing Rock. You know what I mean? See how these are all kind of brands, perceptions people have. Signature Lighthouse is probably Peggy's Cove for Nova Scotia. It's probably the most photographed single item in Atlantic Canada, in all the Maritimes. And that's okay. We want them to see other ones too. Art and Wine for Petite Riviere. Chester is really seen as Cape Cod. I mean, I kind of tried to make it cottage country like in Huntsville, Ontario, but really, it really is. It's so Cape Coddish, and that's a good brand, actually, to have. And, Acadian, Lower Pubnico would probably fit in that. Lunenburg, the Blue Nose, probably Dutch or German heritage there. I mean, these are, they're pretty well branded. And then Mahone Bay, art food, it's more, Mahone Bay is seen very much as upscale. I mean, it just has that air about it. And that's what beautification does. They get big spenders in Mahone Bay. And then what doesn't work is static displays. So no offense to your museums, but most brands that are successful aren't built on past history. And then famous residents, same thing. And then a festival or event. And then your location. How many of you go to Truro because of the hub of Nova Scotia? The heart of Nova Scotia. You know what I mean? The Eastern Shore, the Southwest Shore, Northumberland Shore. I mean, come on. At least Cayley Trail, Skyline, a Lighthouse, at least some of the routes, Lighthouse route, at least sounds like a good destination. If we can fit anyone else in Nova Scotia, you need to toss it and start over. So there you go. And the best brands are built private sector divestment. I mean, if you haven't seen Cabot Links up there in Inverness, did I put it? Yeah, it's amazing. They have people flying in from all over the world to go play that course. Restaurants on Argyle Street. I mean, Anne Murray, Spring Hill. The only challenge with that is once I've been there, I've done it. And by the way, it's a really good center if you haven't seen it. But that was all privately done, by the way. And as soon as you get home, that means right now, because I'm about ready to wrap up. We have all kinds of videos about branding right here if you want to see those. As a matter of fact, I think some of you in Yarmouth have been watching them already. I'm not going to get a whole lot into marketing. I do want you to create all your visitor guides and everything to be activity guides, not visitor guides, not travel guides, activity guides. We want things to do. It's a mental thing with people. And so we're going to give you all kinds of suggestions, on photography. I think, you have so many welcomes from all your dignitaries and everything. And these days you say, just cut to the chase. What is there to do? So, and I'll give you a lot. There'll be a whole bunch more. And so we'll give you those. Provide specifics. I'll leave you just a couple of these really quickly. This is the kind of stuff we want. If you don't provide us with statistics, we're just going to say next. And that's on your web. And even for you, if you have a B&B, it doesn't matter what you have, we want specifics. And this is the age of pricing transparency. If you don't price us, we're not going to call to get prices. We don't want to see 20% off. We want to know the price. That's the way the world has changed with the internet. And people are looking for content. You know what? I'm looking for a place in Nova Scotia that will be the festival city, where you invite people to host their events. And I'll just use one example, BMW. If you own a BMW, you get BMW Magazine. If you belong to the BMW Car Club of America, you get Roundel. In Seattle, if you own a BMW, you get Zunfolge. And every single month, this is Seattle's, reasons to visit your Canadian club neighbors in August. Cannon Beach Driving Camp, Harley-Davidson's, Gold Wings. It doesn't matter. There's car clubs, there's motorcycle clubs, there's quilt guilds, there's potter guilds. Some city somewhere in Nova Scotia is going to be the festival city where you invite other organizations to hold their quilt things and everything, and they produce the event and you host it. And they're all looking for places to send their drivers. They're all looking for places to go. And you need to make digital. I think I only have one more after this, so please bear with me. Look at that. 88% spend more on print materials than on the web. And the reason I'm telling you this is because this applies to you in businesses as well as destinations. There's how your marketing money should be spent. 45% should be digital. Websites, social media, apps, peer reviews. The one thing I did put in there is what they call pay-per-click. If you're not on the first 2 pages of search results, you may mean to buy your way there until you have search engine optimization. Got to do it. You know what? Have you ever gone past the second page of search results? Somebody's there. And if you have to buy your way there if you can't get your search engine. Then 20% on PR. That's articles written about you. That is word of mouth, remember? You build your brand on public relations. Advertising is used to maintain your position as a province, as an area. 20% in advertising to drive people to your website, and 10% on printed materials, and then 5% on all this other stuff. That's pretty general, but if you can, but you can see how important the web is. And then make YouTube a priority. Yarmouth Acadian Shore, once we decide we want to come here, the second thing we do is go to YouTube. Video sells. This is the age of video. 30 seconds. I don't care whether you're a business, even a video business. Just a 30-second, 20-second, no more than 2 minutes, generally speaking, for videos. And we'll give you all this kind of stuff in the report. And by the way, you have a great website, and we also looked at the Yarmouth Acadian Shore website. Just both of them well done. We got lots of suggestions for them. We love the fact that you actually explained what Acadians are, because a lot of people don't know. And you have a tremendous opportunity. And so, you need to do the hidden gems. If you don't have enough to do one of these little books, then do a brochure of the hidden gems. Then do your very best of Nova Scotia's Acadian Shore. And then, of course, you'll have your activities guide. And then, of course, I would like you to do a field guide, which would be your map. That would show your hidden gems and your anchor tenants on that map. And then a Knock Your Socks Off website, which you pretty much have. And then a Southwest Nova Scotia field guide, which is more the overall, maybe an app down the road sometime would be really awesome. And so, remember I said about brands, about delivering on the promise? I want to show it to you in personal terms. And so a Canadian leather company did this little ad that shows you about meeting expectations. And so take a look at this. Yeah?
Here we are, together all alone, in the still of the night, and baby, all I know, my poor heart skips a beat, when you're next to me, in the still of the night. With every sweet caress and with every tender kiss.
And so, here's to the very bright future of the Acadian Shore and Yarmouth. What you have here is really exceptional, and you need to be a showcase. I really think that Halifax is a great showcase. I think Yarmouth needs to be a great showcase. For many people coming on the ferry, you are what they see of Nova Scotia is what they see right here. And you should set the standard for the rest of the province. And by the way, tomorrow I'm going to have this very same conversation with Signage because they're pretty much in your same situation. And so because they get those cruise ships there. But that is the opportunity you have. And as Yarmouth goes, so does the whole Southwest Shore. And so that's how important this is. And I know I went over my time, so I will hang around, but rather than have you sit, I know those chairs after 3 hours, well, these are actually probably pretty comfortable compared to some of the other ones we've been on. But, and I will hang around unless, for questions, if you want to come. Do you have a quick question?
My hometown is Victoria, British Columbia.
Oh, good. Know it well.
And I see tremendous similarities between the two places. Both have a ferry that go to the United States.
Yep.
Amazing historical buildings.
Yep.
I think that this place within 10, 15 years could compete with Victoria.
I think so too. And you know what Victoria's famous for is Bouchard Gardens, which by the way is like 12 miles away. But you know what? It's the world's garden city.
Right. That's its branding.
That's its branding.
Right.
And they deliver on that promise.
But I worked at the Royal British Columbia Museum downtown.
Fantastic, isn't it?
And that was the second largest tourist attraction in all of British Columbia.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very, I mean, if you haven't been to Victoria, it's one of the best. That and Quebec City are probably the two highest rated towns in all of Canada. Yes, ma'am. Well, I'll stay and answer questions as long as if you're okay.
Victoria is also known for being more British than the British.
It actually is.
They have their teas and their
Oh, yeah.
flowers hanging from
Absolutely.
everywhere.
The city, by the way, Victoria hangs, the city hangs 1,000 hanging baskets every year in Victoria. The city, 1,000. And of course, I grew up right near Victoria in the San Juan Islands. And so I know it very, very well. We worked with Victoria Tourism, and they have the double-decker buses. They have the carriage rides. They've been over backwards to bring in people from Great Britain in there to make it very much that. So you're right. It's very, very much that way, and they are extraordinarily successful. But you're right. You have that kind of potential. It's going to be on a smaller scale, but you have the same kind of similar type of architecture even. I mean, granted, they have the Empress there, and, you know, and absolutely. Absolutely. What you do is you have to pick your brand and say, okay, now what do we have to do to do it? And yeah, it does take patience. No question. Any other questions? This report, well, I'm not sure if it'll probably be, Jeanette, you give us a couple of weeks because we're back at the office. I added a couple of things to these while I've been here. And so I have, Jane, my wife, actually helps me write these up, and she's doing them like crazy. So for the next few weeks, you'll get it. But it's also on film. Now, we can't really, you know, and I think, Jeanette, you can get links to how people could watch it. Yeah, if you signed in up there, you'll get followed up. And we'll tell you how you can view the video on your website here locally. Yeah. So if you want to see what we said about the eastern shore, the Blue Nose Coast, the south shore right near you and other places we work, they're all there. You can see what they do. I mean, all of these were custom. I mean, we talked about GPS on all of them because everybody needs to fix it and doing a best of. So some of you, you'll see some common threads, but this was all about you. And we do believe that you need to, you know, I think that Yarmouth needs to come up with this brand. You know, and here's the challenge with, like, Jeanette, she's in charge of kind of doing an umbrella brand. And let me just talk about that just for a quick second. Chevrolet. You know what its brand is? Buy American. You know what its taglines are? Heartbeat of American, American Revolution. But they don't run ads that say buy a Chevy. They sell the Corvette to middle-aged white guys. That's what they'll say. They sell the Avail to young people that want a high-mileage, low-cost car. They sell the Malibu to somebody that wants a four-door, inexpensive sedan. They sell the Suburban to contractors. You know, and then they'll tag it all with that. So whatever your brand is Yarmouth, I mean, the Eastern Shore is easy as a sanctuary because they really don't have a huge differentiation of product. And so that one was pretty easy. It's going to be a little more difficult. But you know what? You, Yarmouth, really set the standard. When I say Yarmouth, I'm also talking about Argyle and Clare and, you know, the things that really are part of this whole Yarmouth and Acadian shore. But I do believe it needs to be beyond Acadian. Because from Halifax, I can go right out to Wolfville, Grand Prairie, and see one of the best Acadian museums on the planet. If I'm driving around the Cabot Trail, I can go to Shetty Camp. They call themselves Acadian. And so you don't own a lock on that. And even though I think the La Village is my favorite museum in all of Nova Scotia, that still didn't get you into Yarmouth. So what sets you apart? Make sense? With that, thank you so much for spending the morning here. Thank you very much. Thank you.